Yeah. My college days were spent driving back and forth from Orlando down State Road 50.
So this
So you go to that section to with the Coochie Forest where there's nobody.
I actually went down this route.
Had a hot rod. Small block in it.
Three.
These, now it's all wide. 4 lanes for that section now. It's nice. And you hit Mascot. Grove Lane speed trap. Yeah. Stark was such a speed trap. They made
That was just like the
they
same
built
way.
a road around it.
Take 121 up to Gainesville, Williston, it was a little speed trap.
Stark and Walnut. Now alternate 301 goes around Stark.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I got it right here. I got your workshop.
Log.
I know, and then I try to really want to
As long as you've got it ready to go, I think thank you.
You're welcome. That's right. It's the fun chat. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Sorry for mixing.
Oh, it's okay. I'll just blame it on
The numbers are very.
We just approved everything. No people.
Okay.
I think that we do.
Yeah, I think like Paradise Lakes has.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised there's not more.
In stone.
I thought there was going to be a ton of opposition to Caliente.
That makes
There's a
sense.
bunch of people showed up 2 weeks ago.
Process and how to go forward. I remember this easier. Is this lady was messaging?
Yeah. I was just,
4 months.
Well, so Rebecca and I are working on it.
Oh, you are?
We have a draft to do this. Cover school golf carts, regulation. Assuming we get it in front of the board and they approve it, then we can create a golf carts and Pasco website that says, here's the.
What's the background on the boat thing? How much came up to it?
Here's the process that is. We have a plan.
There's only 2 commissioners on the
Another
coast.
story.
There's one commissioner adamantly against it, so it came from the other
Alright, well,
one.
thank you.
Gotcha. It's funny how they're carving out, boats. The other driveway. You can park anything else anywhere else.
Well, I didn't know if it was a CDP or an HOA that was involved. Well, he basically, well, either way, the CDD would be. Well, that's why I asked for everybody. I wasn't running back. Okay. So, that doesn't solve the problem. Well, it solves the problem. There's still
It's so small.
well, that sign was there inside the gate. But I have to put some special regardless of, so I don't know, there's no word. You guys gotta work on the city part.
After the conversations we had with the National Environmental
Yeah, I looked them up online. But it's
Yeah.
Is it 3 weeks? Homegirl has quite.
get it disappeared.
That's what got me.
Scary.
It's a niche, but it's a niche. Uses that sort of work with that niche. So, plus we have, did you say also? Plastic cars. Plastic cars are often used in local.
I don't know anything about it.
Car shows.
Attach it with Friday.
That's it.
order. So if we could stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Jamie Girardi. Here. Christopher Poole.
Here.
John Moody.
Here.
Matthew Munns. Derek Quantlitz.
Here.
Chris Williams, represented by Liam Devine.
Here.
Chairman Charles Gray.
Here. And the approval of the minutes. Do we have minutes?
No minutes.
Okay. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody that's here today. With the Planning Commission, we're appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, and we meet twice monthly. Serve as a local planning agency, and we hold public hearings and transmit to the Board of County Commissions our recommendations on comprehensive plan amendments, land development code amendments, rezoning, and conditional use requests. The Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for certain appeals, variance, special exceptions, requests, and certain alternative standard requests. However, final decisions may be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners. So if anyone is in opposition to any land development code amendment, rezoning, conditional use, or any item where the Planning Commission transmits the recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, it's important for you to attend the appropriate Board of County Commission meeting. And for those of you who are not familiar with the meetings, we have 3 sections. We have continuances, we have consent items, and we have regular items. We'll go through the continuances first. If there's something on continuance that you want to have heard and it's relevant, please raise your hand. But it's typically our tradition to grant continuance requests from the staff or from the applicant unless there are extenuating circumstances. We have consent items, and we'll go through the consent items one at a time. Any consent item that we raise, you can notify me that you want to have it heard, and we'll put it onto the regular items. Just raise your hand when we go through it. Otherwise, we will pass all the consent items at one time. And then we have the regular items. Those are the items that will be fully discussed today. Applicants will have 5 minutes to make their presentations, and questioners will have 3 minutes to ask their questions, and then the applicant will have time to come back up and respond to those questions. Do we have anybody online today?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. We do have one individual signed in online for WebEx, and just for housekeeping, we have nobody signed up to speak for general public comment.
Okay, great. So, just as a note, if you have your phone with you, please put your phone on the silent position so it won't disturb anybody when they're speaking or trying to hear. So, and before we start the regular meeting, is there anyone here to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda? Don't see anyone, so we can get started. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, we didn't do that? You're keeping me honest. All right, do we have that in place?
Items were advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on February 4th, 2026, and March 4th, 2026, and by affidavit of certified mailings and site postings.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission members. Gianna German, Planning Development and Economic Growth. Item PC1, you'll be sitting as the local planning agency, and this item has a companion PC2. PC1 is PDE 260286, a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, CPAS 2503, in the name of Old Dixie RV Resort PD, providing for a comprehensive plan amendment to the future land use maps 2-15 and sheet 03, changing from Res 6, residential 6 dwelling units per gross acre, to PD plan development. on approximately 12.56 acres of real property located on the west side of Old Dixie Highway, approximately 0.25 miles south of the intersection of Gulf Way and Old Dixie Highway, and a text amendment creating sub-area policy FLU 7.1.87 Old Dixie RV Resort PD, and a map amendment to the future land use map 2-9, adding sub-area map 2-987 Old Dixie RV Resort PD, and this is coming with a request to continue the item to a date uncertain.
All right, is the applicant present? Anyone here to object? Okay, let's go to the next one.
Item PC2 is the companion piece to PC1. It's PDE 267895, a zoning amendment in the name of Ground Floor Storage LLC and Old Dixie RV Resort MPUD Master Plan Unit Development to allow for a rezoning request from an R4 high-density residential district to an MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District to allow for the maximum development of 52 RV spaces 52 RV space resort and associated infrastructure located on the northwest Pasco County, abutting Old Dixie Highway on the east side, approximately 0.56 miles north of New York Avenue and Old Dixie Highway intersection, containing approximately 12.56 acres, and this is also coming with a request to a date uncertain, and that is the remainder of the continuance agenda.
All right, Ms. Woolhite, are you the applicant? Okay, so anybody here to object? See no objection?
Move to continue PC1 and PC2 to a date uncertain.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
The first item on the consent agenda is PC3. It's PDE 267917, special exception in the name of Love Property, John T. Love and Laura M. Love for a reduced rear yard building line setback for an accessory dwelling unit and ADU in an ER estate residential district located in West Central Pasco County on the north side of Lakeview Drive, approximately 200 feet west of Osceola Drive, containing approximately 1.56 acres. And this is coming with the recommendation to approve the special exception request with conditions as set forth under the recommended conditions section below. Authorize the chairman to execute the one original order provided and direct board records to distribute as set forth under the distribution section below.
All right, is the applicant present? Anyone here to object? See no one. Next.
Item PC4, you'll be sitting as the local planning agency. It's PDE 260435. It's a comprehensive plan amendment CPA 2601, West Market Area ROR, future land use, density text amendment, providing for a text amendment to the future land use element appendix section FLU A-6 and a text amendment to the glossary, and providing for additional text amendments as necessary for internal consistency, providing for a repealer, severability, and an effective date. And this is coming with the recommendation that the Planning Commission find the proposed amendment, the local planning agency find the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
Mr. Chair, I have a question about this one.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you pull it?
We'll pull this one then. Okay, so PC3, we pulled.
No, it's PC4.
PC4.
I'm sorry. 4.
And that's the remainder of the consent agenda.
Move to approve item PC3.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion on the motion on PC3? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries.
Mr. Chair, would you like to hear item PC4, or would you like me to proceed with item PC5? This is on the regular agenda.
Let's do PC4.
Okay, okay.
So I think 5 has a companion, right?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Joseph Reinbold, Planning Development and Economic Growth. This is CPA 2601, West Market Area ROR Retail Office Residential Future Land Use Density Text Amendment. Proposal is a text amendment to the future land use element appendix section FLU A6 and a text amendment to the glossary. Purpose is to establish new density allowing up to 32 dwelling units per developable residential acre for development and repurposing projects. The location is ROR flu designated properties located within the West Market area. Here we have the map of the county with all the different market areas. Here is specifically the West Market area. And then here in the kind of red-orange color, we have all the ROR designated properties. So the proposed amendment is for redevelopment and repurposing projects within the West Market area. It applies to previously developed, underutilized, or obsolete sites. So that'll be your brownfield, grayfield, and infill sites that have existing infrastructure. It does not apply to undeveloped vacant parcels.
So can I stop you there, because that's the root of my question. So if you had say a 30-acre tract that was otherwise vacant, but let's just say it had a quarter acre that had an old farm building on it, do you consider that to be redevelopment or vacant?
That would be redevelopment if it had existing structures on it.
So even though 95% of the tract was vacant, if it just had a small old farm building, you're considering that redevelopment?
That would be redevelopment, but there's also other qualifying factors. So in ROR, you're going to have C1 properties, C2 properties, different zonings. So in order to have multifamily residential in the West Market area, it has to be C2, and then you have to apply through a conditional use process for that opportunity. So it's on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I'm just asking what qualifies them as redevelopment for the 32 units per acre? Because when we did the mobility fee regulations, we didn't, if it was largely vacant, in other words, if it was, say not, the majority of the site was vacant, and it maybe just had a very small one house. And we have lots of large tracts in the county that were basically ag tracts that maybe had an old house on it or an old farm building that were predominantly vacant tracts. But have not historically considered that to be redevelopment because it had a single house on it or a single farm building. Historically, we've considered redevelopment to be, it was actually fully developed with a commercial building or an entire residential tract of houses or something that are now being demolished. So I'm not sure I agree with the answer to your original answer to the question. Terry, do you agree with that answer?
David, can I ask you quickly? Your example is that it's a 30-acre tract with a farmhouse building. If it's a 30-acre tract with a 2,000 square foot commercial building on it.
Well, I don't know where we draw the line. I mean, maybe that would be redevelopment. My problem is that the way they've defined redevelopment, I don't know where that line is drawn. And so when we did when we did this in mobility fees, we actually used a percentage of the land. We actually
It's having structures on it.
That had structures on it that had impervious. We actually came up with a specific percentage of it that had to have been developed, so we wouldn't have this fight about how much of it had to have been developed for it to be considered redevelopment. We didn't leave this to chance later. We came up with a percentage, and there is no percentage in this. It's just, so I don't know where you're drawing this line.
So the redevelopment definition
that's proposed here to be included into the comprehensive plan says the substantial improvement, reconstruction, or replacement of existing developed property, including the demolition of obsolete or deteriorated structures, reconfiguration of sites, modernization of infrastructure, or other activities that reinvest in and revitalize previously developed lands. There are sites along, so this particular upgrade to ROR is dedicated specifically to the West Market area, and specifically you're going to have most of that ROR along the US 19 corridor and a bit along the State Road 52 and 54 corridors. With regard to those particular sites that are on 19 and 52 and 54, there are not very many, if at all, I'm trying to remember right now off the top of my head, vacant parcels that would kind of meet the criteria that David is referencing. I mean, there's no farmhouses basically in these areas. I know the 75% vacant parcel mobility fee threshold that was established a couple of years ago, so that is there, yes. We did not include that in this definition, thinking to prioritize actual redevelopment rather than putting a threshold on it. If we do have a parcel of land that's underutilized on the US 19 corridor, and it's sizable enough to accommodate potential increase in density, this would be the place to see that density.
I mean, if you're comfortable, there's no situation, I mean, I've seen your map. I mean, if you're comfortable that there's no parcels where this is going to be abused by what's effectively vacant farmland that just happens to have an old structure on it, then I'll live with that answer.
Can I
But I mean, Mitchell Ranch
make a
is a good example.
suggestion?
I mean,
Recent.
yeah, I mean,
In his,
that's a good
ROI.
example. Mitchell Ranch just happened to have a house on it, but the majority of it was just vacant land.
so in his definition of redevelopment, he says it's the improvement, reconstruction, or replacement of existing developed property. So when I go to the glossary in the comp plan, development is the carrying out of any building activity or mining operation, the making of any material change in the use or appearance of any structure or land. So I think where I'm going with that is, in your example of the 30-acre tract with a farmhouse, the area of the tract which contains the farmhouse has been developed, but the rest, if there's been no material change in the use or appearance or structure of the land, is not developed.
Yeah, but somebody could argue that it's all one tract of land. Especially if it's all one parcel, it's a one parcel ID. They may argue that that parcel ID has been developed.
So how can we fix it?
Well,
Maybe tie it to some sort of density
I mean, you could say
structure.
some percentage of the parcel has been developed. I mean, which is what we did with mobility fees, but Terry's telling me that based on the map that he's showing me, that all of those parcels don't have this issue. I don't know, because I haven't studied the map like he has. I mean, if he's right, then maybe that this isn't an issue, I don't know. Maybe there aren't any parcels like Mitchell Ranch on this map
Well,
that have it, that are largely vacant with a single farmhouse on them, I don't know.
I'm aware of some that might meet that definition along, say, US 19. I could think of a couple up in Hudson that would, they've got a small building up front by the highway, but the rest of the land in the back is in its natural state, that it's been that way for 40 or 50 years.
Which,
I'm just saying that we all have a picture in our minds when we say redevelopment. We generally think of it as old commercial, old industrial building that needs to be torn down.
Old condos.
We don't typically think of Mitchell Ranch as redevelopment. Okay, so, but the way this is defined, Mitchell Ranch arguably constitutes redevelopment. That's the issue.
I agree with you.
And so, that's the concern, and when he answered my question originally, he basically said Mitchell Ranch would be redevelopment.
Right, and what I'm suggesting is that area of the land which is not developed, even though it may be part of the parcel, perhaps should not qualify as redevelopment. Yes, it may be redevelopment where I tear down an existing structure or an existing parking lot, but if the back 15 acres was never touched and it's in its virgin state, then it's hard to say that that's redeveloping, that's new development.
Or even if it's being used for ag purposes.
Well, I mean,
Not in its virgin state.
but the problem with drawing the line that way is that I don't necessarily want to penalize, I mean, I get your point, but let's just say it is a true commercial development, obsolete parcel that's got, 50% of the site had an old and obsolete industrial building. Say the back half was largely vacant, and they want to redevelop it at 32 units an acre. I don't want to say they can't do the back half at 32 units an acre because that was untouched. I mean, I would still consider that a redevelopment site because
50% of the land's being used for.
because they truly did develop that site with an obsolete industrial building. I'm just trying to make sure this isn't abused by what is largely a vacant tract with an old farm building or an old house. I mean, that's.
So can you state that, at least 25% of
Well,
the parcel had
so-
to have
well,
been developed
Okay, well,
in order to
could it
qualify for
be-
redevelopment?
could it be the word
Or some sort of percentage.
non-residential? Is that your concern? Your example was a farmhouse or an old house, whereas if it's a non-residential structure like a restaurant or a store,
I think it should have something to do with the percentage that has a
and then,
structure on it.
then I would fix that, because residential could also include a multifamily building, which then I think would fall under your envisionment of something that's developed.
I do think that if it's multifamily or commercial, that it's less likely to be abused, yes, that's your question.
So, single-family, non-resident, non-single-family residential.
Yeah. I mean, Terry, do you have a solution to this problem, or?
One, David.
I mean,
If you're representing to me that none of these sites are
we have there's a combination of things that happen along the North US 19 corridor in particular. There are some sites in which they're totally wooded, large tracts of land. I'm looking at one right now, for example, that's approximately 10 acres. Undeveloped, there's nothing on it, it's just trees. So those types of sites do exist on the US 19 corridor. That would be considered greenfield development, assuming somebody comes in and wants to build something on it. To the extent that there has been a plat process and nothing has occurred, because there are some places along 19 in which there's been some kind of subdivision established. You can see the parcels on the map. My understanding is that would be considered a form of development, because a development order has been processed essentially and land has been split, et cetera. And so there you could consider the part of the definition here before underutilized sites.
Let me back up for a second, because I don't know the purpose of, if the purpose of this policy is you just want to intensify this corridor in general, then maybe
No.
I don't care. But you stated that the purpose is that you want to encourage it only for redevelopment sites. So,
To facilitate the economic burden of having to deal with existing infrastructure, structures, et cetera, that may be on the site. And that's what I was getting to next, which is that there are also sites on US 19 that have, 10, 20 acres, and they had built a pad at some point. Maybe there was a building there once upon a time, and the building went away, and all you're left with is a pad and an old parking lot. Utility connections are present, because you could imagine the connections that were going to that building. That doesn't exist anymore, and so that was part of the logic, is, okay, let's take some of these sites also, which are underutilized, vacant at this point, and incentivize them for redevelopment. So any kind of tear down, ripping up, redoing of the site is added cost on the redevelopment, and if you can incentivize things and allow for a bit more density on the mixed-use parcel, that's what we were going for.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you're trying to incentivize that type of previously developed property, which you're describing, I'm not sure this definition gets you there.
Terry, would it be problematic if the general situation is that most of the properties in these ROR corridors are already developed and they're getting older and starting to blight, and we want them to redevelop? Is it really much of a problem if we just allow all the properties in the ROR to go to this proposed density? If there's only a few that aren't developed today, would it really move the needle?
I mean, that's where I was going, Commissioner Mooney, was that, I mean, if you're really just trying to incentivize these ROR properties in this corridor, maybe it doesn't matter, maybe just let them all go to 32 units per acre.
Right, I think what I'm asking is if there's not enough completely undeveloped parcels to make a difference, does it really matter if one or two that are vacant today get to take advantage of the increased density?
I mean, certainly the vast majority of the parcels along 19, as I'm kind of been surveying this as we talk here, would fall under this. I see what your point is. Like, if there's not that many, the vast majority are
Not that
already
many
developed.
undeveloped parcels, so
Yeah.
if one of them was undeveloped and managed to come in and develop at this density, does it really make any substantive difference that they did it?
Probably not.
If the majority of the corridor was
Vast
undeveloped, I could see why one might not do that, but if the vast majority of the corridor is already developed, it doesn't really make much difference.
I guess it would only make a difference if you were trying to encourage them to go to the true redevelopment site versus the vacant site.
Yes. I think what Terry's trying to say is that there aren't that many vacant sites to begin with in these particular areas.
You have a recommendation, Terry?
If
I'm sorry?
Terry's telling me it's not an issue, I'll drop it. I'm fine with it.
And it's only in the
David,
West
do you have
Market
something?
area we're talking.
Yeah, I do. David Engel, Planning and Economic Development Director. It's, the board's view is that we should do things to redevelop 19, have more productive uses there. So I wouldn't exclude vacant parcels on 19 because they're just as important as redeveloping an existing facility which has an ancient building on it that needs to be rehabilitated.
Totally agree, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with
Well,
that.
then maybe you should.
I think we should define
Maybe
the
you should exclude them.
geographic area that this applies to. It just says West Market, maybe we can provide a more precise definition.
It's basically this.
Well, you could just increase density at 32 for ROR, period,
Then
not just for
52.
redevelopment projects.
Correct.
You're gonna say that.
Well,
In the West Market area.
In the West
Well,
Market.
Honestly, if that's
it
how
says
this
West
had
Market.
been-
Is there, there's
If
a
that's
there's a
how
map
this had
on?
been put in here, I would never
Oh,
would have
okay.
raised the issue.
Okay.
Right.
But you had an exclusion for vacant parcels and said this only applied to redevelopment.
Yeah, you take that part of it out. and it's-
Yeah, you can fix that. If that's the desire, then we can fix that language and
Make
make
it
it just
apply to all
applicable
ROR
across
in
the
West
West
Market
Market, ROR in the West Market area.
Right. The idea is to get that corridor looking shiny and new again.
Right. So we can fix that language to that effect.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, I understand the idea of trying to encourage redevelopment, but like you said, most of those parcels are developed already. So by definition, it's gonna be mostly redevelopment.
All right, thank you, Terry.
So you're just gonna make it apply to all those parcels then?
If that's, yeah, if that's the desire of the local planning agency, then we don't see why we should counter argue it.
I think that solves the problem of trying to figure out what's redevelopment and what isn't.
Again, if it was 90% vacant in that area, that'd be a different story. Right? But since most of it's not vacant,
So if we were to make a motion, do we want to make it on the text of the proposed amendment?
I have some questions, so I don't know if you're done asking that question, ready to make a motion, but do you know how many acres is ROR in the West Market area?
Hi, Ms. Ellie, Plan Development Economic Growth. It is 5,572 acres approximately.
Yeah, give or take a few hundred.
0.343.
Did you set her up for that question?
A little bit, and I'll explain my thought, but I asked her earlier today on if she had the acreage for the total acreage of ROR, and then what would actually fall into this as redevelopment or repurposing. It seems like we might be going in a different direction, because I wanted to know how many increase of units that would be from 24 to 32. From a student generation point, that could be potentially a lot of students in that area, so I was trying to figure out what that acreage is, so I can figure out some of those numbers of how many students could potentially be generated from going from 24 to 32.
Gotcha.
I would also note that there's not a current Euclidean zoning district that goes up to 32. So I don't know if the intent is to then require those applicants to go through the MPUD process to allow that, or if there is another means via conditional use. I know historically past conditional uses didn't become less restrictive than the code, so I don't know if the intent is to allow those conditional uses to go up to 32, since the West Market area does allow conditional uses for multifamily without any commercial integration or affordable housing elements.
Sure. So certainly MPUD is always an option that can be used for redevelopment. The vast majority of the ROR in the West Market area is under a C1 or C2, mostly C2 zoning. So the conditional use that the C2 would allow would basically follow the future land use allowance for density. So if it increases to 32 and you have C2 zoning, if ROR increases to 32 and you have C2 zoning, and there's a redevelopment that's taking place, you could take advantage of the 32 dwelling units per acre through your conditional use process. So likewise with an MPUD, it would be the same scenario. You would just be following the future land use density designation. As far as the MF1, MF2, and MF3 options of the utility or Euclidean zone, yes, I think MF3 can max out at 24-ish in that area. But we also know that in the land development code, the Euclidean zones need to be updated following Pasco 2050. So that's going to be one of the projects that we have in the land development code update.
So my question is, was there a reason why this couldn't wait until 2050? Because it sounds like the timeline for 2050 is approaching quickly of how fast your timeline is,
Yeah.
or how fast you would like it to be. So is there a reason why this needed to go now instead of waiting until 2050?
Yeah, so this has been moving through the system the last couple of months. It didn't follow, we opted to not follow the Pasco 2050 timeline at the moment, mainly because of legislative activity happening in Tallahassee on this particular question. Also, it's been stated objective for many years in the county to try to facilitate redevelopment wherever we can within the West Market area. So we determined that we should advance this, given that we had a couple of projects on the horizon that might be able to take advantage of this and potentially even bring affordable housing into the area. So we wanted to try to smoothen that out without dealing with the headwinds of legislative or non-legislative endeavors coming from Tallahassee, to put it broadly.
David, did you?
So, sorry, can you just repeat that number for me? 5,000.
572.
572?
It's a maximum of
Thank you.
44,576 dwelling units if you add 8 to every acre, which is, of course, never going to happen. But
So Commissioner Moody, if you wanted to alter the text, I think what you would do is you would change the language to say, just say for projects within the West Market area, the maximum density allowed shall not exceed 32 dwelling units per developable residential acre. You would strike the next sentence, and then you would strike the definitions of redevelopment and repurposing.
Terry,
Joe, did you have that down?
We got that video.
would there be any desire to keep the definitions of redevelopment and repurposing, even if they didn't necessarily apply to this particular text amendment?
We could keep them, and then
Or is it
either continue on with it as part of this amendment, just doesn't hold bearing now on the ROR and West Market issue. Or we can
Keep the
tap it
definitions
in, or
reference them in the future.
tack it onto 2050.
What are your thoughts, David?
I mean, if they want to, it would be odd to keep it with this amendment if it's not being used in this amendment. It's probably better to put it with 2050.
Okay, all right. Fair enough.
Okay, we could do that.
Okay. Continue.
Well, somebody would have to make a motion to that effect if that's your
Yeah.
request.
John,
Well,
somebody want to make a motion?
should we finish the presentation? Because you were partway through your presentation, right?
Well,
Oh, we
it
wanna
was
deal
really
with
my
that
question,
issue.
and he answered my question.
Yeah.
Well, then with that, I would move to approve the proposed text amendment, striking the words for redevelopment and repurposing from the first sentence and strike the last sentence from the proposed text amendment and eliminate the two glossary terms, redevelopment and repurposing.
You have a second?
Second.
Does that sound like that would work legally, David?
It definitely addresses my concern, because
Okay.
my concern was with the definition of redevelopment, so that eliminates the definition.
Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, solved. Continue, anything else? That's it,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next, we have item P5 on the agenda, which you'll be sitting as the local planning agency for this item, and this item has a companion MPUD, which is P9. P5 is PDE 260006, a comprehensive plan amendment in the name of CPAS 2502 Caliente Resorts, providing for a comprehensive plan amendment to the future land use map 2-15 and sheet 20, changing from commercial to res 24, residential 24 dwelling units per gross acre, on approximately 4.93 acres of real property located on Gran Via Boulevard, approximately 0.3 miles east of the intersection of Caliente Boulevard and Land O'Lakes Boulevard. And this is coming with the request that the local planning agency find the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners. And there is a presentation by staff.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Doreen Roy, Planning Development and Economic Growth.
Okay, thank you, Doreen.
Item P5, Caliente Resorts.
Doreen, before you start, Mr. Chair, there's a companion item, a rezoning. Did you want to open up the public hearing for both items? At the
Yes.
same time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Very good. PDE 260006, CPAS 2502, Caliente Resorts. The proposal, the petitioner is requesting a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation from COM to commercial, from COM commercial to Res 24, 24 dwelling units for gross acre, on 4.93 acres being a portion of parcel 0126 180040 000000M0. The flue change from COM to Res 24. The purpose to allow for 96 condominium units. The location of the proposed project is on the northwest side of Grand Via Boulevard, approximately 1,750 feet from the intersection of Land O'Lakes Boulevard and Caliente Boulevard. There is an accompanying MPUD 2024-00062 to substantially modify the existing Caliente Resorts MPUD, which will be processed concurrently with this proposed amendment. The property is located in the central market area and outside the urban concentration area. This is the context map. Transportation network map. Existing future land use. Proposed land use. The proposed amendment is consistent with the following comprehensive policies. Policy Flu 1.43, Policy HSG 113, Policy Flu 187, Policy Flu 110-1, Policy Flu 813. The recommendation is finding the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners. I'm here if there are any questions.
Any questions?
Just one quick one, Doreen. I don't know anything about this. A citizen texted me and asked about a road that was supposed to go through here to Erin Cutoff and was supposed to be split between Caliente and Wilderness Lakes, and they claimed that the CDD fees were up to do this road and never finished it. Does anybody know if there's any truth to this?
I think I'll defer that information to my colleague in the MPUD.
Okay.
Do you know which road that is? Victoria Street, Hills, Plankton, Mountain,
You mentioned Erin Cutoff?
Yes, a road that was supposed to go through to Erin Cutoff.
Tower Road extension?
I mean, I can tell you that currently Caliente Boulevard has an unfinished middle segment that ends just north, well, not just north, but a bit ways further north from the Caliente site that we're talking about, and then it stops. The right-of-way is all there, but the road ends, and it's just grass for, I don't know how long that distance is, and then it picks up again further north.
So maybe that's what they're talking.
Yeah, but I don't think that would have been a CDD priority or requirement to build, because that's on the Vision Road network.
Okay, and is there any relationship between this project and that?
On the 96 condos, no.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So who's here to speak on this one?
There are individuals signed up to speak on this item, Mr. Chair, both in person and online. Item P9 is the companion, if you would like to hear that first.
Yeah.
Okay. P9 is the companion MPUD to P5. It's PDE 267857, a zoning amendment in the name of Caliente Resorts MPUD and LOL Properties, Inc. For a rezoning request from Master Plan Unit Development to Master Plan Unit Development District to allow for the development of 96 condominium units and associated infrastructure on approximately 4.93 acres located on the western side of Caliente Boulevard, approximately 0.31 miles northeast of the intersection of Caliente Boulevard and Land O'Lakes Boulevard. This is coming with the recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners of the proposed substantial modification to the MPUD with conditions.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission. This is Robert Irving with Planning Development and Economic Growth. So yes, the item before you is PDE 267857, the Caliente Resorts MPUD substantial modification. Here's the location map showing this in the south central part of Pasco County. And the project overview, the proposal is a zoning amendment from MPUD Master Plan Unit Development to MPUD Master Plan Unit Development. It's a substantial modification to allow for the development of 96 condominium units on approximately 4.93 acres. And it's located on the western side of Caliente Boulevard, approximately 0.31 miles northeast of the intersection of Caliente Boulevard and Land O'Lakes Boulevard. So here's the location map showing the subject site. And here's the zoning map. This MPUD was last approved in 2010 to allow for a maximum development of 738 dwelling units. Here's the future land use map demonstrating the COM commercial as previously presented. And here's the site location and overall context. So that red line is the overall boundary of the Caliente MPUD. And so as I mentioned previously, in 2010 it was approved for 738 dwelling units. To date, only 430 units have been built, including the RV spaces. And the maximum number of dwelling units currently in this substantial modification is capped at 526, including those 96. So this shows an overall reduction by 212 dwelling units. The reasoning behind not carrying over those 212 leftover dwelling units is because there's currently an application in review for that westernmost piece that you see that's vacant to rezone from the Caliente Resorts MPUD and take it out and be its own standalone MPUD. Additionally, as part of this modification, the applicant will be required to construct a 405-foot northbound right turn lane at the intersection of US 41 and Caliente Boulevard prior to the first building permit for the record plat or first building permit issuance. Here's the master plan. It's a little hard to see, but kind of centered in the middle there, you'll see the cutout between where the existing clubhouse is and the proposed 96 condo units. So here's the binding concept plan, which demonstrates the 96 condo units spread out amongst four-story buildings located within the existing parking area that abuts the main lake within the center of Caliente. The binding concept plan shows one vehicular connection onto Grand Via Boulevard and 4 pedestrian points of connection. Those are those smaller arrows shown. So then we have a separate exhibit demonstrating the recreation areas within the existing community, because part of where the condos are proposed to be located is within a portion of the existing development that currently is occupied by 3 tennis courts, 6 pickleball courts, and 1 basketball court, which are proposed to be removed to accommodate this proposal and the associated parking area. The existing pool and sand volleyball areas will remain. So what this is showing is that the applicant will be relocating some of the existing recreational areas to the northern portion of the subject site in that green top hashed area with 2 tennis courts and 2 pickleball courts, and they will be responsible for relocating the areas mentioned concurrent with the first PSP PDB submittal for the 96 condo units. The applicant is also requesting a variation from LDC section 907.1 on-site parking to reduce the required parking ratio to 1.5 spaces per unit for the proposed condominium units. PDE has identified that this proposal is within an existing development with additional parking in the resort and clubhouse, and the need for parking at a ratio of 2 spaces per unit may not be necessary to accommodate the proposed units. Additionally, this modification is consistent with the existing parking ratio that was established for the multifamily dwelling units in the previous approval, which allows for a parking ratio of 1.5 within that portion of the MPUD. Due to the existing development having sufficient existing parking space available in adjacent locations within the development to accommodate the proposal, PDE is amenable to granting relief to the variation requested. And this comes to you with a recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners of the proposed substantial modification to the MPUD with conditions. I'm available if you have any questions.
Questions, anyone? Robert? You're off the hook. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the first individual I have signed up to speak on this item is Joe Hitch.
The applicant gets to present first.
Yeah.
Thank you. Shelley Johnson, 6400 Madison Street, and I have been sworn. We are in agreement with the conditions as presented, but we're here to answer any questions anyone may have.
Okay, so we want to hear the concerns first, and then you come back up.
Okay, I can answer them. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you, Shelley. All right, so who's the first to speak?
Mr. Joe Hitch, he's online for virtual comment.
Okay, Joe, can you hear us? Joe? I think Joe's no longer with us.
We can jump to Mr. Stephen Riddle and we can come back to Joe if he's online.
All right.
Mr. Chair, have we sworn in individuals?
We're gonna do it right now.
Shelley said she was sworn.
Can't trust her.
Good afternoon.
We need your name and address, and we're gonna swear you in too at the same time.
My name is Stephan Riddell. I live at 21221 Cully Rosa Drive, Land O'Lakes, Florida. I live at Caliente.
Okay.
And the pictures, when it showed where they're going to put the 4 buildings.
Yeah, we have to swear everybody in first, okay? So anybody that's gonna speak today, would you please stand and be sworn, raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, now you can go.
I gave you a name and address. Do you need more information from me?
No, just
Okay.
what your concerns are.
The picture that showed the 4 buildings going up, and it had some buildings next to it, I live in those buildings. So from my building to the next closest 4-story building is 70 feet. Caliente right now has no structures over 2 feet. I mean, 2 stories. There is nothing that is 4 stories, 3 stories, or 4 stories. This will be an anomaly in the neighborhood. It's not part of the character of 2-story buildings in Caliente. They are taking, as stated, the 3 tennis courts, 6 pickleball, a tennis pavilion, and a half-court basketball. They're going to try and squeeze all of that into what they call an overflow area, which has been used numerous times when Caliente has special events. The only place to put people is the overflow area. They had in their application that the underutilized tennis and recreation courts, they're used daily. They're not underutilized at all. They're proposing 2 tennis courts, 2 pickleball. Maybe if it'll fit in that area. It doesn't look like it when you drive back there and see it. I have no problems with a 2-story instead of 4-story condominium building. They're going to build the same condominium building style as what's currently there. Caliente on the map showed that it had 25 acres on the northwest corner up there. that was Caliente LLC, sold that to CA Properties, which is Carl Anderson. And is there any reason, Carl Anderson is still the person that, the LOL Properties is also Carl Anderson. Is there a reason that they can't put the 4-story condo towers on that property that's on the northwest side of, there is a road for that, a road to nowhere that they built for that purpose. I think they should put the 4-story towers there, the 4 towers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The last individual that we had registered for public comment was Joe Hidge, if you're able to hear us.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Oh, we're just experiencing a lot of feedback, Joe.
You may have it on speaker on his end.
It's not connected through the system.
Okay. Okay, well, Robert, want to speak? Is there anybody else that wants to speak besides the person that's online that can't speak? No one. Robert, you spoke to this gentleman yesterday?
Irving Planning Development Economic Growth. Yes, I spoke with him yesterday, and his main concern, I believe, was to be the height, kind of as mentioned previously, the height and the character of the overall area not being over 2 stories and this being 4 stories was the main concern that he expressed to me.
Okay.
What, do you know where he lives?
He did not give me that information.
Okay, so give me a couple more minutes and then we'll move on. Miss Shelley, do you want to come on up? See if you can.
Thank you again, Shelley Johnson, 6400 Madison Street, and I have been sworn. To answer the question, the height is
that
the
last time.
Huh? Yeah. The height actually is the existing height that is already approved for the Caliente MPD for the multifamily condo product. It's always been 4 stories, so it's just matching what was already approved over the years. I know some of the multifamily was going to go immediately adjacent to the single family, and this particular site's actually just immediately adjacent to the actual Caliente Resort, the clubhouse, and so they'll have nice, it's a nice amenity area, obviously, so it's going to be in that type of a style.
So what amenities
Resort
will
style.
they have there once that 4-story building is built, if that's what happens?
What's that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What type of, it seems to be a concern about what type of amenities they'll end up with.
Well, they have right now, and again, this is from the owner, they have the 6 tennis courts, or the 3 tennis courts and the 6 pickleball courts, and then the basketball court, and they're highly underutilized. And so that's why they're taking them out, putting in the density to, further service the resort itself. I mean, obviously it's behind walls. It's not going to be out in, in the right of way or anything like that. And ultimately move those courts and reduce the size so that they still can have them. They'll still have them, but they're just not going to be as many of them because they're underutilized. So I know the 2 times I was out there, they were all empty. There was no one playing, so.
Okay. All right, anything else?
No.
All right, any questions for Shelley?
Not for Shelley, but maybe for staff.
Okay, for staff.
I was just curious what the requirement is for park and/or green space within an MPUD.
So in this particular MPUD, it had all of its preliminary plan approval other than what we're doing pretty much right now in 2001. So it was the neighborhood parks ordinance, which is probably what you're referring to, actually was not adopted and didn't become effective until 2002. So the majority of it just never applied to as it's built out, obviously. There is already a lot of open space and amenities that they've just voluntarily put onto the site because it is supposed to be a resort with the sandball courts, the various, you can see the various pool. They have a clubhouse, a restaurant, a bar. Obviously, they're moving these courts. They have a walking path, which is that purple line that you're seeing on that exhibit. That's actually a walking path that they put through the entire development, which people really enjoy. So there's a lot of green space. What we're going to do is at site plan, if we have to get an alternative standard or address park issues, we'll do it at that time. But there's a lot of amenities on the site already. So.
Yeah, I understand this is probably grandfathered in for that. But,
Yeah.
With a substantial modification to an MPUD, wouldn't that now apply?
Well, the 96 units would not be exempt.
Right, just to the 96 units, which is what we'll deal with at site plan, yeah,
Okay.
and whatever it means we do. We think there's a good amount of with the courts and the sand volleyball and the path through the whole entire development. There's some nice amenities in there, so we feel comfortable addressing it at that time.
Yeah, problem is it's potentially taking away amenities from the rest of the neighborhood. So although the 96 units will fall under that, then
Are the amenities that are there, are those belonging to the hotel and resort, or are they for all residents of the development?
All residents, yeah. And the walking path surprisingly is open to all residents too. And it's through the whole development. Again, the amount of courts that they have are just underutilized, so, they are going to move them because we did have a couple conversations with a couple of residents who had raised that. And I know the manager spoke with them that, and that was the intention, is to go ahead and just move them to this other area, have some amenities around there you can see, because they think that, they'll be utilized a lot more without having so many of them.
Can you address the question about why you're not developing the western?
So that property is the one that is currently under a separate MPUD. It's under contract, it's being purchased, so this is the last little piece in Caliente that's really there to be built out, and then this MPD's done, there's no more space, so.
Shelley, on the map that's on the screen, is that
Yeah.
residential to the northeast there, adjacent to where the pickleball and tennis court, is that part of Caliente too?
Yeah, it's RV resort, so the Caliente has RV, it's got condo, it has existing villa, townhome, and then, single-family development, and of course the restaurant, the bar, so it has a real nice mix of uses, but yeah, that's RV at that corner.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure when you're moving that, complaint you hear a lot of times with pickleball is the noise.
Yeah.
So you're moving that right adjacent to that existing sector up there that doesn't get the pleasure of hearing that all night.
Yeah, it's RV, I think some of it's a rental, so yeah. I'll definitely let the owner know that y'all had raised that, and they do everything real nice in there with regards to the amenities. So I know the intention would be to make it another nice amenity for them, for the residents to utilize.
And Shelley, real quick, so to the residents' point that testified, those pickleball courts where they're going and the test, they will fit in that area? There's been,
Yeah, Paul Manuel, who is our civil engineer on this, he actually looked at it and he's determined that's where they can go.
Okay.
Yeah, and we did have him look at that, yes.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Nobody else to speak? No? Do I hear a motion?
Are you?
This is a motion for
Trying to-
5 and 9?
We do,
But I'm not sure.
You should take action separately. Right?
Okay. Yeah, but it's gonna be for both of them, but
Yes.
two separate motions.
we do still have Mr. Joe Hige or Hidge online. I'm not sure if we're able to pull him up or not yet still.
I've lost it. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, John.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir,
Barely.
we can hear you.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. So, yeah, what we said earlier, thank you for bearing with us here while we get through the reverberation echo, I apologize. Yeah, basically, I think someone else did it earlier as well. I'm at 6808 Dolly Avenue, D206. And the proposed area for the 96 units is, taking 6 pickleball courts, 3 clay tennis courts, and a tennis pavilion and basketball court. As everyone knows, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America, has been for 3 or 4 years. Those courts are filled every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and most days during the week on pickleball, and a couple days during the week of tennis. So a couple questions. One, all residents, people who use the facilities are very concerned. Going from a usage of 6 pickleball courts down to 2 is completely unacceptable. And then also the people who play tennis, from 3 to 2, are those going to be hard courts, or are they going to be replaced as clay courts, right? And we're losing a pavilion that's probably 50 feet wide by 50 feet long, covered pavilion, is a fixed structure. So we're just concerned as to why that's been shrunk and reduced, and why it isn't being replicated in a similar quantity that exists today. That's the biggest concern for the people that use that as an amenity to the facility. All right, can you hear us? Anybody have any questions of Joe?
No.
Yes, you can hear us.
Yeah, okay. There no questions up here?
No, not from him. I mean, I'd be curious to know from staff, if this MPUD was subject to the new park regulations, how much space would be required. I understand it's grandfathered in by a year, but
Well, by the strict
Okay, well-
interpretation of the code, they would have to dedicate an acre of land, and then there are certain dimensional standards for the park as well. I'm sure they'll probably seek some sort of alternative standard to that, but
It was 1 acre.
1 acre.
Yeah.
Thank you, Derek. All right, does that answer your question, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, it's 5 acres, but, so, I guess the only thing that would be required for the existing MPUD would be an acre of that. So I don't know how much of this is, I guess they're gonna be dedicating about that much to the, northeast there. But that's just my concern, is it seems like it's taking away a lot of amenities that people are used to in the neighborhood.
Okay. Anybody else have any feelings about it? Any comments? This is your opportunity. Do I hear a motion?
move to approve item P5.
We have a motion to approve item P5. Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Did you get a second?
I know I did.
Second.
I thought I did.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Okay, now we have a motion on P9.
Move to approve item P9.
We have a motion on P9.
I'll second that one too.
And we have a second. Any further discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay,
Item P6, you will be sitting as the local planning agency. It's PDE 260446, an ordinance by the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners amending the Pasco County Land Development Code, amending section 530.5, parking or storing of recreational vehicles, renaming section 530.5, parking or storing of recreational land vehicles and recreational watercraft, amending section 1001, docks and seawalls, section 1001.4, visibility, appendix A definitions, and other sections as necessary for internal consistency, providing for applicability, repealer, providing for severability, inclusion into the Land Development Code, and an effective date. And Rebecca Bove will provide a presentation.
okay.
Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. Rebecca Bowe with Planning Development Economic Growth. Here today to talk about some changes we're proposing to our recreational vehicle parking and storage standards. Our intent is to allow limited driveway parking of recreational vehicles on driveways in residential lots. To do that, we're amending section 530.5, renaming it to parking and storing of recreational land vehicles and recreational watercraft. We're requiring some new enhanced standards and making updates to Appendix A and some other updates for consistency.
I'm sorry, could you repeat your first part again?
Sure. Our intent, the intent here is to allow limited driveway parking of recreational watercraft on residential lots.
Okay.
Okay. So currently, our code does not allow this. We regulate on this definition here, it's recreational vehicle. We define it as a non-commercial transportation structure or device that is used or designed to be used for recreational purposes. This is only a snippet of the actual definition, which is 483 words long, so it's all-encompassing and it's very broad. It pretty much entails anything you could possibly think of as a recreational vehicle. Currently, our code allows parking and storing of recreational vehicles within certain zoning districts, and they're kind of separated by the size of the lots. So in larger lots, those are agricultural zones or estate residential 2, and residential lots 1 acre or more in size, excluding estate residential lots. So within those zoning districts, you can park or store your recreational vehicle behind the front setback or 5 feet from a side or rear property line. Smaller lots are considered to be residential lots, 1 acre or less, or an estate residential lot, regardless of its size. And current standards require recreational vehicles to be parked behind the front setback, 5 feet from a side or rear property line, behind the principal building line, which is defined as the line parallel to the front door, and they have to be screened from abutting properties. Our code also includes other standards that prohibit parking within the right-of-way. You can't park it or store it if there's no primary structure there. We do allow driveway parking for short-term loading, unloading, or cleaning, and recreational vehicles cannot be used for residential, commercial purposes, and if you're parking it or storing it on your property, it has to be owned by the occupant. We do allow guests to stay in an RV within a property, but they have to do so with a permit.
For how long?
I think it's up to 10 days, and you can extend it. Okay, so in order to allow boats to park in driveways, we are updating the definition for recreational vehicle to recreational land vehicle and removing all references to water-related functions. And we're creating a new definition for recreational watercraft, which we're defining as a non-commercial transportation vehicle or device used or designed to be used for recreational purpose on water. This is also just a snippet of the whole definition. which is about as long as the current recreational vehicles definition. We further divided this out into two subcategories. So we have small recreational watercraft and large recreational watercraft. Small watercraft is defined as being designed for individual or small group recreational use on nearshore waters. This includes things like canoes, kayaks, and paddleboards. And then we have large recreational watercraft, which we define as being designed for navigation on open waters or for extended recreational use, including but not limited to motorboats, sailboats, pontoons, and similar vessels. What we're proposing is to allow large recreational watercraft to be parked on a driveway in a residential neighborhood, residential zone, or in an agricultural zone, as long as it's 5 feet from a property line and doesn't overhang the right-of-way and doesn't obstruct line of sight. Small recreational watercraft would still have to be parked or stored on the side or rear lots. Some additional standards we're including is that you may not park or store more than one large recreational watercraft. So if you have one stored in your side or rear lot, you can't park one in your driveway, and if there's one in your driveway, you can't park or store one in your side or rear lot. So one on the property in total, and it has to be parked on a legally permitted driveway, and it shall not displace domestic vehicles onto the yard or into the street. So if you're already parking your domestic vehicle on the street or in your yard, you may not park a boat on your driveway. We did some research on surrounding jurisdictions to see what they allow and how they regulate, and we found that most other jurisdictions do allow recreational vehicles to be parked in driveways under specific standards, many of which we've included in our proposed amendments. And the recommendation is to accept public comment and find the proposed amendments consistent with a comprehensive plan. I'm here for questions.
Rebecca, quick question.
So what's the minimum size lot that you can do this on?
It just has to be 1 acre or less.
1 acre or less?
Well, I mean, it would apply to all residential lots, really, regardless of its size.
And including MPDs that have 40-foot wide lots.
If it can fit there, meeting the standards, yes.
Most of those have HOAs that have separate governance, so.
Yeah.
so.
What's the rationale regarding large watercraft and small watercraft, that the large one can be parked in the driveway, but the small one can't? What's the thinking behind that?
Sure, so some of our staff was concerned that we would get multiple kayaks or canoes parked on a trailer in the driveway, and there was concern that that would create visual clutter.
More so than a boat?
I mean, if it's still limited to one, it shouldn't matter.
Trailer with multiple kayaks
Well,
on it.
perfect example for me is you drive through an area like Regency Park. They're all over the place, and there's nothing but visual clutter.
Are you talking about boats or trailers with
Boats
kayaks?
and trailers. They got, utility trailers, boats, cars parked on the grass, trucks everywhere.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, I'm in favor of being more restrictive.
And you're saying that if they park the boat in the driveway, they can't park the boat on the street? The car on the street?
Correct. If you already have a domestic vehicle on the street, then you may not park a boat on your driveway.
Okay, and can they park the car on the grass like they do in Regency Park?
No.
Can I pave my front yard and turn it into a parking lot?
It's supposed to be parked on a legally permitted driveway.
Well, my driveway could be legally permitted. The county regulates that portion of the driveway that's in the right-of-way, not that's beyond the right-of-way. And one of the problems that I see of our code is we have lot coverage regulations, but we don't have impervious surface ratio regulations. So what would stop somebody from accessing a parking lot from their legally permitted driveway and basically paving their front yard so that they could put their boat in the driveway and park their cars on their now newly paved front yard.
I think the answer is that we couldn't reasonably fix that without an impervious surface code.
Which is what we need,
Yes,
in my opinion.
we sure do.
So, whenever you're done, I have a couple language
But
questions.
I, to that same point, I agree. What I'm pointing out is that they're a clever homeowner, or somebody that just listened to me watching this hearing, now knows how to get around your rule. But to Chuck's point, Mr. Gray's point, I'm sorry.
Chuck's fine.
I think this creates a bunch of visual clutter too. And, you know, I'm sure there's probably a whole bunch of nice boats. And then there's things where people buy these project boats that are projects that never get finished. And they sit in the driveway forever and they get more mold and more mildew and,
I will say that the proposed amendment does include language in there that it has to be operable.
Yeah, that's an inoperable word in a way. Operable, that's a subjective word.
Does that mean it
But,
floats?
yeah, it floats.
well, exactly.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that if you go by a place and there's boats and trailers and stuff parked in their yard, it's gonna devalue the guy next door. There's just no doubt about it. I can tell you that. I see it all the time. And I just think we need to go in the other direction.
I think it depends, though. I think if you have a nicely maintained house with a beautiful brand-new boat sitting in the driveway, I don't think that's.
I did totally disagree with you on that one, Derek. I don't
Because
think
when I
that-
see it, I see something that's, hey, they have some disposable income, they're, you know, this is a nice area.
And I said, there's probably some really nice boats that, you know, I'd probably drive by and go, wow, wish I had that boat. But I can tell you when you drive into my neighborhood, there's boats out there that don't look like they've been in the water in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
And like I said, they're covered in mold and mildew and.
Yeah, there's not too many $80,000 boats sitting in a driveway.
Right.
Got one in my neighborhood.
Hi, David Engel, Planning and Economic Development Director. I guess this boat is taking some water here, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to give you some context.
Like the Iranian name.
We have people, residential lots with boat parking all over the county. We don't allow it, it's all illegal. So some of the board members were interested in applying some reasonable regulations to permit boats with certain standards and conditions so we could manage the boat parking in front and the side of people's homes. So that's the context.
Yeah.
So the intent is to get them out of the yards and onto the driveways. Is that right?
I think the intent is to allow people to store their boats at home on their driveways.
Because my reading of the text, it looks like that now they will only be allowed on driveways and no longer on the side or in the back like they previously were. Is that true?
No.
They'll still be allowed on the side of the house.
Correct,
So
you can,
that's-
but you can only store one.
Okay.
You can actually store two if you store one on the side of the house and one in the driveway.
You should just said you can't do that.
Correct, the code says, the amendments as we've written them state one. You can
Does
still,
that only apply to the large watercraft, or can they have a large boat in the driveway and a kayak on the side of the house?
that only applies to the large recreational watercrafts.
Or
not
jet
sure I
skis on the
understood
side of the
answer.
house?
So they,
Yeah.
so they could have a large boat in the front and jet skis or kayaks on the side?
Yes,
How about a utility trailer?
that's regulated under a different section of the
Lawn
code.
care business or something.
How about an RV?
They could still store an RV on the, in their side or rear lots.
I know, where I was asking that before is section H So, it seems kind of contradictory because it says above, RLVs and RWCs may be parked in areas, that were previously allowed. But then it says in that section, residential driveway, recreational watercraft parking, the following provisions apply to large RWCs parked or stored on properties zoned AC, AC1, AR, AR1, AR5, AR5MH, and residentially zoned parcels, including residential lots within MPUD zoning districts. Does not apply to small RWC. Driveway parking standards shall be parked on a driveway. Shall be stored on a trailer. So it just seems conflicting. It sounds like that they can only, this particular type of craft can only be parked on a driveway. I feel like it should say, in addition to,
Okay.
for clarity. And
I misinterpreted the graphics that you showed too, because I thought that before this regulation, you showed the boat on the side of the house, and then under this regulation, you showed all of a sudden the boat in the driveway. So I thought that meant that you weren't allowed to put it on the side anymore.
Oh. I thought I did a good job with the graphics.
I like the graphics. I thought the graphics were
Graphics are
great,
good,
but,
yeah.
but I gave them too much credit.
I could say you'd interpret it like that. I almost didn't use a boat.
I thought I'd share something with you guys. On the day staff presented this to me, I happened to be perusing through nextdoor.com and found this little love note that a neighbor left for another neighbor. It says, "Move the boat. Its presence diminishes our property values and is an eyesore to our neighborhood. If you can afford the boat, you can afford to leave it at a marina or a storage facility. This is not Pasco County. Thank you, 27 of your neighbors."
I will point out, that came from a resident in Pinellas County. Pinellas
Yep.
County doesn't regulate parking of boats.
Yeah, they can already park there.
Right, but I think the point is, they're in a deed restricted neighborhood in Pinellas County, and I think their point is that Pasco County is kind of junked up with this kind of stuff, to Mr. Gray's point, and I agree. Neighborhoods like Embassy Hills, Regency Parks, Jasmine Lakes were once very
Holiday Lake Estates,
nice.
yeah.
Holiday Lake Estates were
Holiday
once
Lake.
very nice neighborhoods. And we've allowed this kind of stuff to proliferate without rigid enforcement. And now they are not so nice places.
Right.
And it's a shame.
I wouldn't be so against it if it was, places that were an acre or more, where they could put their boat behind their house and be out of the view of the public.
I recognize you're in a difficult position as the staff, that you've got a commissioner that's asked for this. So I'm not, please don't take any criticism that we make of this as personal to the staff or you personally. Our job is to make a recommendation to the commission, and so hopefully the commission is listening.
I just tell them it was your idea, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Could you clarify?
And hearing the way we feel about it. I mean, they ask for a recommendation, they may not like the recommendation.
And technically, it's to evaluate consistency with the comp plan.
Okay, whatever. So how does that work when I adopt the new comp plan? I guess they didn't think of that when they wrote the
Well,
statute.
technically, it's with the existing comp plan. Not that the existing comp plan has a lot of policies addressing this issue, but.
Well,
I just think-
Well, yeah, we do.
Value of the property and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
I just think if you
Affects-
pass,
Compatibility.
if you pass this kind of a ordinance, you're just gonna proliferate even more of this stuff. It's just gonna continually bring down the value of properties. Just telling you, that's my business,
And
and I know it.
that's just my thinking too. I mean, if you want to go on, run out and buy a boat, or run out and buy an RV, And you better think about where you're gonna store it before you go buy it,
Exactly.
okay? And putting it, and then what I find to be hilarious is it's gotta be, under our current ordinances, if you park it on the side of the house behind the principal building line, it's gotta be 5 feet from the side property line.
That's not gonna happen.
How do we do that with lots that have 7.5 and 5 foot setbacks? But boy, they sure shove them. You go down through Regency Park and Embassy Hills, they got those boats shoved down there. They're not 5 feet from the property line.
No way.
Nobody's doing anything about it either. Where's code enforcement? I mean, do we have like blind code enforcement officers or something? I mean, because it's amazing, and there's even one that lives in my neighborhood. And he just manages to drive by hundreds of violations every day and not see any of them. I'm trying to figure out how that is, especially all these boats laying on their side in the front yard.
Cars on blocks. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, that stuff is, because they're not operable.
Well, we got entire
sense.
trailer cities that have been built in my neighborhood where we take recreational vehicles, we run down to Lowe's and we buy a bunch of lumber and enclose them with wood. We run illegal electrical to them. We've got 5 or 6 of them on the property. I can spot them on the aerial photograph. We advertise them on the internet for rent. No building permits, no zoning permits, and nobody does anything.
I had another question about language, which didn't really have anything to do with the boats. It just talked about RVs and using them for residential purposes on a temporary basis. So it was section G6. So the second paragraph where it says, an RLV may be occupied temporarily for residential purposes within properly zoned campgrounds, RV parks, and RV subdivisions. And it goes on to say, if it's someone that's not, it's owned or leased by a person who is not a resident, and it's up to 10 days, 4 times a year, and so forth. But that language makes it seem like that's only allowable on properly zoned campgrounds, RV parks, and RV subdivisions. Because the part above it was struck for AC, AC1, AR, AR1, AR5, ER2.
I think, when I struck all the listed zoning categories, I did list them all in G. So my hope was that I could list them all in G one time and make the rest of the text a little more concise and not have to repeat them throughout every paragraph going down.
Okay. But it looks like, so it says an RLV may be occupied temporarily for residential purposes within properly zoned campgrounds, RV parks, and RV subdivisions. So it appears that.
I understand what you're saying. It looks like in the text that was shown, there was like a number 2, and then we went on, so I will fix that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, going back to the whole idea of RV or boat parking on a property, I mean, it makes more sense on bigger lots. Obviously, if you have small lots and people that have crammed boats on the property line and things like that, I think there could be a middle ground here somewhere. I can see where you guys are coming from with degrading property value, but at the same time, we don't want to be the police that try to tell people what to do with their property either. So I like the language that you use, talking about being operable, maybe an addition of something like, operable and generally free from rust and dirt and mold, those kind of things. Because I've seen HOA documents that use that kind of language to kind of eliminate. Now, I understand you get into a little bit of subjective territory, and that's where there can be some issues, but I think there could be additional language that would help eliminate some of the junk, right? But if you have a beautiful brand new RV or a beautiful brand new boat sitting there in the driveway, I don't see how that's an issue, at least me personally.
So add some additional maintenance standards.
I think that would help curb some of the concerns that some of the other commissioners here have brought up about the junk that we see, you know, and the cars on blocks and things like that, you know. Obviously, if a car's sitting on blocks, it's not operable.
Right.
It's not, it wouldn't pass a DOT inspection.
Well, again, there's the word operable, you may be able to start the engine, just won't go anywhere. You
Well,
know?
I think it needs to be tagged, right?
But,
So if it's tagged, then that means you have to have taillights that are intact and headlights intact and a windshield that's intact and
Well, no,
tires that are.
I can pay the registration to Mr. Fasano, and he doesn't come out and inspect a car. I can beat out all the
Well,
headlights and the taillights.
He doesn't,
If
however,
I
you
could
get pulled
interrupt
over
for
if you
just a
drove.
moment,
Well, that does, but it's still tagged.
but
Is.
it says
not
shall be
operable.
maintained in operable condition and capable of safe use on the water or roadway.
Correct, yeah. And that's language I've seen before.
I'm just telling you right now that I'm not gonna support anything that's on a small piece of property like that. It's just,
Can I ask a technical question, because I'm not a boat owner?
Yeah.
Is it safe to start a boat out of the water?
you should only start it if you're running water through.
If you're running water through it, yeah.
The engine.
So actually,
You have to-
yeah,
yeah,
we
but
flush it.
They have a little
I'm
flushing.
just asking because if a code officer is trying to inspect the boat and whether it's operable, is the property owner gonna be able to start it on site?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
if they have the appropriate accessories to do that.
Yeah, you have to run water through the engine at the same time.
Really, you can start them briefly
It
without
looks
running
like
water
two
through it.
suction cups you put over the intake of the outboard motor, and you attach a garden hose to it, so it allows water
So
to run.
there is a way to demonstrate its operability
If-
out of the
If
water.
you have a proper attachment, yes.
I think you can even without it. You can start it for 10 seconds and it won't hurt anything with no water running through it. You just can't let it run.
Or you can submerge the outboard in like a garbage can full of water. I've seen people do that
Yeah.
before.
Okay.
Question, I don't know if somebody can answer this. How long has the prohibition of parking boats and other recreational vehicles in your front yard, how long has that been in the code?
I couldn't answer that off the top of my head. I'd have to look.
Because it's been that way in this county for as long as I can remember. I can't
I don't know if it's
remember a
legal.
time when it was ever allowed.
Yeah, I don't think it's legal, but they've been doing it.
Well, I know they've been doing it,
Yeah.
but I'm saying it's been in the code that this is not legal forever and a day.
And why has it been allowed to be done?
Well, and I guess what I'm saying is if you bought a boat or an RV, it's not like you didn't know. It's not like a new code that we just
Right.
banned the parking of it last week. It's been that way for 40 or 50 years.
Right.
So I'm unfortunately somewhat of an expert on this particular subject matter because I'm going through this with our HOA, but in my neighborhood. But so the language that was, one of the languages that was proposed was all RVs, which refers to boats as well, must be in operable condition for legal public operation on the roads, trails, or waterways of Florida, or private operation on private property, and must be presentable in condition, generally free from large areas of rust, dirt, mold, peeling or missing paint, etc. An RV considered inoperative if it cannot legally and/or safely be operated because of cracked or broken windshields or windows, broken lights, flat tires, is in unsafe, inoperable condition, etc. So that kind of language, I think you can get there more than, not only does it have to be registered and tagged, but it also needs to be safely operable. And I think that right there, along with being free from large areas of rust, dirt, mold, peeling paint, things like that, I think you can probably curb out most of the junk.
I share Chuck's concern about the size of the lot too. I think, this is gonna,
Yeah, I could see that.
this is gonna proliferate, and even, I mean, John has made all the comments about the enforcement issues that exist out there already. It just proliferates it further if we.
But technically, that's against the code already.
Right, but happens
Gonna
a
get
lot
worse.
worse.
That's
So
not-
how is enforcement gonna catch up with that? How's code compliance gonna catch up with that? And then enforce this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a separate matter.
So the code exists as it does now since at least 2018.
Can you clarify on the permits? You said there's permits, so specific to a house guest of the owner, it's 10 days? Is that, and from what I'm saying, it can be renewed 4 times per calendar year? Is that continuous, or is that, not that it really matters, but it's total of 40 days that they could potentially be living in a RV as a house guest?
That's how I interpret it, yeah.
I don't vote on this item, but I am familiar with that section. I think in the last maybe 15 years, we've never had a RV permit for 10 days ever pulled.
Or any RV occupancy permit?
Yes.
Well, why would they get a permit? Because nobody does anything about it if they do it anyways. You know, right around the corner from where I live, there's a guy that has 1, 2, 3, 4 RVs on his lot with people living in them in the front yard.
Yeah.
In front of their camouflage painted mobile home. And the 4th RV's just shown up this last week and is half parked in the street. To where I drive out and I gotta drive around the end of the RV that's parked in the street.
Yeah.
If we had rigid code enforcement that were taking care of problems like this, and I thought they'd be on the case and taking care of the boats that Derek's pointed out might not be that offensive, then I might be able to support that. But without having that kind of code enforcement that's gonna do anything, but right now if they're not able to take care of the problems, the violations we have today, why do I wanna do anything that's gonna promote or proliferate more violations? And again, I recognize you were asked to write it. It's not directed at you.
What'd you say?
Well, I'd like to hear a motion for purposes of discussion, if we can. And move this forward to one or the other.
Well, fine, I'd make a motion to recommend denial of the amendment. I'm sure the commissioners will have a very spirited discussion about it when it gets to the BCC, and they can take our recommendation or leave our recommendation. They're not under any obligation to follow our recommendation. If they don't like it, I'm expressing what I think, and I don't think we should allow it, so I would move to deny it.
And I'll second that motion.
So I assume you're finding it inconsistent with the compatibility policies in our comp plan?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so we have
Unless
a
you'd like to
motion.
take a break and come back with 27 other
No,
reasons
I've-
like we did for,
Citing compatibility. The new law on compatibility hasn't taken effect yet, so you don't have to be more specific than that.
thank you.
That's right. You have a motion and a second, so now for further discussion.
No, I agree. I think we're just opening ourselves up for problems. We can't even enforce the problems that we have now, so.
Yeah, I think that, you know,
So I just want to be clear, there was one additional change on seawalls that you didn't cover.
Okay,
It's, I don't know what that is, it's changing a number,
it's a cross-reference, yeah.
so,
What is it?
So seawalls cross-references, hold on, sorry. They describe what it means to be living in your RV within this section, and so docks and seawalls refers back to it, so they don't have to restate it again in that section.
What is there restrictions on seawalls?
I'm sorry?
Are there restrictions on seawalls?
I'm just trying to figure out, is it sort of does that implement anything related to the RV, I'm just trying to figure out whether they could recommend approval of that change without, or if that sort of has to get thrown out too.
Okay, so it's, enclosed areas built over docks may not be used even temporarily for residential purposes such as those described in section 530.5 C4 of this code, which is RVs shall not be connected to water, sewer, electrical lines, etc.
Okay, is this just fixing a typo, or I don't know what
That's what
this
it looks
It's
like.
fixing a cross-reference. So currently, it's cross-referencing the C4 section, so we struck the cross-reference and referenced the new position in the proposed amendments.
Oh,
Yeah,
so if
So-
they don't approve the proposed amendments, then you can't
Right.
use that cross-reference then?
correct. It becomes
Okay, then you-
inaccurate.
Okay, then I get it. Okay, so then you can't approve that then. If they're denying it, if they're denying the amendment, they can't approve the change of the cross-reference.
Right.
Okay, then that answers my question. All right,
So we have a motion and a second, further discussion? If not, all in favor of denial, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign?
Nay.
All right, the motion passes. Motion for denial passes.
Thank you.
Item P7, I believe we're on mobility fees now. You will be sitting as the local planning agency for this item. It's PDE 260525. This is the first workshop dedicated to the extraordinary circumstances necessitating the need for the mobility fee increase to exceed the phase and limitations in sections 163.31801, section 6B, D, and D, Florida statutes. Staff will provide a presentation.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
I hope so.
Nick Uren, County Engineer. So first, let me just say, what a remarkable group of people you are. You have spent a lot of time thinking about how development should occur in Pasco County today, and I'm sure you're worn out. I'll do this as quickly as I can.
We'll do it again in 2 weeks.
One quick comment, the title should be actually referencing paragraphs B, C, and D of statute. I think it erroneously said B, D, and D. So
Yeah.
just interpret that as alphabet would suggest. That should have been a C in between the B and the D.
Great, thank you.
The agenda is very quick for this presentation. We're going to cover the statutory limitations on mobility fee increases. We're going to talk about the extraordinary circumstances that are confronting Pasco County that justify increasing our mobility fees above the statutory limits. And then we're going to ask you to take public comment and hear your discussion.
Okay.
This is one of two items. This is not an action item. This is a discussion item. The second item on your agenda regarding mobility fees will be the action item. As far as the mobility fee limits go in state law, you are required to justify your increase based on a study. We've done that, and that study is attached in your packet. You are limited to increases that are less than 25% of your existing fee being implemented over a 2-year period. We have some of those, and so we're complying with that criteria. If you would like to increase the fee amount for any land uses in your schedule between 25 and 50%, you're supposed to do it over 4 equal annual installments. We're proposing to do it over 2. And if you, by statute, you're not permitted unless you have extraordinary circumstances to increase any of your fees above 50%. We have some fee increases that are proposed above 50%, so we're here to tell you what those extraordinary circumstances are that have led us to present this information to you. Also, statute says you can only increase fees once every 4 years. We haven't done it for at least 4 years, and so we're good. Local government can exceed the above limits if we have a recent fee study that justifies these extraordinary circumstances, if we hold 2 public workshops devoted specifically to these extraordinary circumstances, so you happen to be workshop number 1, and if the fee increases are approved by the governing body by unanimous vote. And then the fee increases must be implemented in at least 2 equal annual installments if they are approved in excess of the statutory limits, and we are proposing to do that with the schedule in front of you. Okay, on to our extraordinary circumstances. We have 4 to share with you. Extraordinary circumstance number 1 is we're growing a lot faster than our last fee study said we were going to. Last time we thought we were going to add about 230,000 people. Now we're predicting to add 330,000 people from this point forward to get us up into that mystical 7-figure total as Pasco County population. That means that we need to build a lot more roads to accommodate those people.
When are we predicted to be at 1 million?
2050. So the comp plan updates that you are so vigorously investing in reviewing are planning for a population of just over 1 million people in the next 24 years. In addition to that, the people who are coming here are also taking more trips. So every so often, the Institute of Transportation Engineers publishes an update on the estimated trip rates for various land uses. They recently published such an update, and many of the uses that we commonly see here in Pasco County, they said those types of uses generate more trips than the last study that we published said they would. So not only are we having more people come, they're actually traveling more.
Can you give us an example of some of those land uses?
I don't have those uses memorized. I apologize. That's probably the one item that I'm not as conversant in, but I do have Bill Oliver here with me, who is our mobility fee consultant, and if he wants to take that question, I'll happily let him, or if you'll let us do a little bit of research, we'll try and have an answer. The third big extraordinary circumstance is that roads just cost more to build. It's the impact of inflation, and it's the impact of time that the unit prices for constructing every piece of infrastructure that we build to accommodate growth has gone up. So it's not that we're building more, it's that every cubic yard of concrete, every cubic yard of asphalt that we're laying, we're paying more per unit to deploy those materials and build the facilities that are needed for our community. And those costs have gone up by about 31% from just the last 4 years, the assumptions that went into our study in 2021. Oh, and I should mention, I've got a couple of cute little animations here. That's why I was thinking about that. So the rapid population growth, I highlighted the Sun Lake Boulevard corridor. This is near Suncoast Parkway in Angeline. The first picture here is where we were just 5 years ago. And this picture here says this is where we are today. The 2026 aerial photo, that's how much of that land has been carved up for development, subdivided into lots, and is being constructed as housing. This is one of our rapidly growing areas. And then I also wanted to mention, when you get into the infrastructure costs, this is the overpassed Old Pasco Road intersection. That's what it looked like 3 years ago, and that's what we're trying to make it look like right now. We've got the existing lanes in the southbound direction on the left side of your screen. We're building the northbound lanes to make it an ultimate 4-lane road, and it just costs a lot of money. And then our last component is mobility fees are a piece of the puzzle to pay for our overall transportation infrastructure. We also use local, state, and federal gas taxes. We also use portion of property taxes in the form of tax increment funding, and we also use, what am I leaving out? Sales tax, penny for Pasco sales tax. The portion of the total amount of our projected need that was comprised of state and federal gas taxes in 2021 was 38%. In this updated fee study, that's only paying for 11% of our need. And that means that we need more resources from those other sources in order to properly fund the overall anticipated need for those 330,000 additional people. So here's my extraordinary summary. We ought to increase mobility fees because more people are coming to Pasco. They're traveling more. They want to travel on roads that cost more to build, and we have less other revenue to pay for them. We're asking you to accept public comment because this is, per statute, a public workshop. And then we're happy to hear any feedback, discussion you have, again, with the understanding that the next item on the agenda is going to be the actual proposed fee schedules and amendments to the land development code, where we're asking you to sit and determine comp plan consistency.
Nick.
Yep.
Question. I apologize because I have my report on my laptop, but my laptop batteries just died. But the information about where the trip generation rates, percent new trips, the travel generating parameters is summarized in a table that's in Appendix A of the technical report that you have with you. Some rates went down, some rates went up. So it's a mixed bag there.
The overall rate, you know, when you add them all up, how much did it go up?
You know, I wouldn't say it probably across the board, not much. It's just more like individual land uses. Some went down, some went up, but across the board, about the same. But, you know, the way the statute's written, if any one fee bumps up by more than 50%, you're there. And in some cases, in particular in the industrial category, warehouse distribution, parcel fulfillment, previously those were 100% subsidized, they paid zero fee. The Board of County Commissioners gave us direction, don't give them a completely free ride, charge them half the fee. So there's an increase from a zero fee to whatever the dollar amount turned out to be, which is an infinite increase. So just to cover our bases and keep ourselves as clean as we could, we're here for on that over 50%.
Nick, how long does it take the county to design, permit, and construct a roadway?
3 years if we don't need right-of-way, 5 if we do.
5 if you need right-of-way.
Yeah, from the point where we issue notice to proceed to the design consultant to the point where we start constructing. Yeah.
So let me get a couple things
Not counting time of construction.
straight.
Yeah, and then we have a construction
I
schedule
understand how
to
this works.
finish. That's right.
So, when do we collect mobility fees?
At the issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
So when they get a certificate of occupancy, and someone's now moved in this home and they're driving on the road.
That's right.
So I'm collecting the money to build the new road after the traffic's already on the road.
All of our revenue streams come after the demand has occurred.
Okay. What,
Yes, mobility fees included.
well, it didn't used to, but
Concurrency has seen its better days.
so I just want to make sure I got this right. So we collect the money after the traffic's on the road. Then it takes us 5 years to design and permit and go construct the road. All well, inflation is causing the cost of that road to go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. Right?
All true.
Okay. So when we raise the impact fees, how are we addressing that basic problem? Because the thing what I see here is this. This is, to me, is almost insanity. Insanity is when we do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. Okay, and how long has the mobility fee system been in place? David?
2011 started, I think.
Okay, so this is 15 years now? All right. So in 15 years, we've been doing these periodic increases, and now we want to do another increase. And what makes us think that we're going to get any roadways any better, faster, cheaper than the way we did before?
Oh, I'm not saying that this is going to enable us to do it better or faster. I'm just asking for this increase because if I don't get it, we will lose ground. We're just trying to
I think
maintain
the point is we lost
pace.
the ground the day we collected the fee when the day the traffic got on the road. I think what I'm saying is we need another system. And I'm glad
Well,
we have
we
this
had
opportunity.
such
I'm
a
here today.
system.
I'm not,
Yeah.
yeah,
This is actually the 20th anniversary of Senate Bill 360 from the legislative session in 2006,
Just an observation.
when we lost our
Concurrency was a
ability
very
to say,
unfair system.
to say no
The
to
reason we got
development.
rid of concurrency is because it was not a fair system.
Sure.
Rancher A wants to go out in the middle of the county where there's no road, no water, no sewer, and he wants to build 5,000 acres of houses. And they say, concurrency, you gotta build this, you gotta build this road, you gotta extend the water and sewer out there, and you gotta do it on your dime, and you need to do it before you build this development. And he did. And then Rancher B, his next door neighbor, came out, they said, gotta look at concurrency. Guy says, hey, no problem. Already a 6-lane highway here, already a brand new water and sewer line, and Rancher B doesn't have to pay a thing. So that was an unfair system. So we created this mobility fee system to address the patent unfairness of concurrency. But the problem is, I don't think anybody thought about this, that the price of the road doesn't go down while we're in the design and construction and right-of-way acquisition process. And then when we print trillions of dollars for fake diseases, and dilute our money even further, then I don't know how we expect to build roads. But maybe we should take this opportunity to assemble a working group of professionals like Ali over there and his compatriot, Mr. Razor and Mr. Henry, and stakeholders. And we need to fix a system that gets roads, because I go on Facebook every night, and there are hundreds of thousands of people in this county that are furious that they have to sit in traffic every day because we don't have a system that can get them the roads.
Yeah.
The other issue I have with this is how long, Jamie, since you're in this business like me, does it take someone to plan a project, go through the MPUD process, get the preliminary development plan approval, a construction plan approval, all the other agency permits, and then initiate construction? How long before we actually break ground are we working on these projects?
We gotta get zoning,
Yeah,
Could be 2, 3, 4
3
years.
to 5, 3 to 4 years.
okay. So those projects were pro forma'd based on an impact fee, right? So what do we think is gonna happen to these projects that were pro forma'd based on the impact fee schedule today? And now, right as I'm about to come break ground on this project, I announce that I'm raising the impact fees by more than 50%. What do you think happens to that project? Well, if the project dies, then how many impact fees do we collect? None. Okay?
Although you have, in theory, less impact, too.
And you know, up until a few weeks ago in this country, not just Pasco County, but even here in Pasco County, we were concerned about affordability, 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 affordability. Well, who do you think pays these fees? How do we make housing more affordable by jacking up all the fees for a system that hasn't been able to produce roads? And I'm not blaming anybody in this room. None of these people were here. Mr. Oliver may have been around as their consultant, but Nick wasn't here, and Terry wasn't here, and Ali, you're here, you're at fault. It was Ali's fault. But we got a system that doesn't work. What I want to know is, what are we doing to fix the system, or attempting to do to fix the system? And have we given any consideration to how such a dramatic, rapid increase in the rate affects projects in the pipeline, which is exactly why the legislature was wise to spread that out over a longer period of time, because they recognize the lead time that happens for these projects. And I can tell you right now, I've shown the proposed impact fee increase schedule to some of my clients who said, that's it, they're gonna throw in the towel. So those are impact fees you're actually not gonna, I'm sorry, mobility fees you're actually not gonna get. You gotta decide whether you wanna get something or you wanna get nothing. That's all.
I guess, Bill, I've got a couple questions for you. I mean, you work, you do this stuff for not just Pasco County. I mean, what are you seeing in other counties? Are other counties doing similar things?
They are, not, there's a mixed bag. Some communities aren't terribly cognizant and not too interested in developing the network. Other communities are, and those that are keeping up with costs and so
Is there a
forth.
comparison of our fees versus Pinellas County and Hillsborough County?
Hillsborough would be a better comparison because Pinellas has
Hillsborough
no
would.
meaningful development.
I
right?
don't disagree, but,
Yep.
and our fees compared to Hillsborough's how?
I should mention that.
That's-
I should mention two things I neglected to say. First, we did, because when we were doing the study, we recognized the significance of the impact that these increased fees would have on the development community in Pasco. And so we did a board workshop in November to get their feedback on the magnitude of fee increase that they would be willing to support. And that's how we generated the schedules that are in your agenda today. That was based on board direction to go that far and not farther. One aspect of that board direction was based on the comparison of other high-growth counties in the Tampa Bay and Central Florida area in order to keep parity with those counties. And so Osceola, Hillsborough, Orange County were all presented, and we're in line with the fees that those communities are charging. Yeah.
What kind of feedback did you guys have from stakeholders like the TVBA and other types of organizations?
Generally, the answer is acceptance. I mean, should they want, if we give them input opportunities, then they say, well, we would like lower fees.
Well, if
But-
TBBA,
Acknowledgement that the costs, I mean, they see the same cost that we do. They know that they're ending, I mean, one of the big distinctions that David Goldstein and I have talked about is that development communities are ending up with what are considered excess fee credits because they are spending more to build roads than their mobility fees are generating in revenue to offset those road costs. Reason is we're not charging an adequate magnitude of mobility fee because roads have gone up in price. We're allowing them to generate these excess credits because we're not charging them appropriately to mitigate their impacts.
And further, the mobility fee doesn't cover the full cost of the program. Mobility fees only pay for about 25 to 30% of those costs.
Well, I was gonna
Going
ask
forward,
that
closer
kind
to
of as,
50,
and
yeah.
maybe there's not a pure answer to this, but obviously we're looking at significant increases to mobility fees, which is 25% of that cost. But there's other components that make up and fund those, there in your chart there. I mean, take the gas tax, for example. I mean, obviously, gas tax wouldn't look at a 50% increase to generate the same amount of revenue. Yet all those people, I mean, those are all the same people that are using all these roads that are costing more money to build. So, I mean,
And-
why are they not sharing the cost?
and how much does the
We've
assistant
actually
county
maxed
attorney?
out our,
It's maxed out?
We've
Okay.
maxed out our local option gas tax. In
Right.
fact,
Yeah.
So let me ask this,
last time I'm gonna give you a little history on the gas tax. So in I think it was in 2014, the first time we looked at our mobility fee, we intentionally avoided an increase in the fee by raising the second local option gas tax. So we already pulled that lever
Oh,
to avoid an increase once,
Right,
but we can't pull it again because we've maxed it out.
gotcha.
Plus they're paying through the sales tax commitment to transportation and through property tax increment as well.
So all the other options have been looked at. I mean, this is last resort.
The only other lever that is available, that arguably is available, is the tax increment, but that's not really available because the legislature is, as you know, going after our our property tax revenue. I mean, it's not something that we can realistically allocate more money to.
should we charge a tax to people who drive electric vehicles and don't pay the gas tax?
You can, but I'm not sure there's enough electric vehicles on the road to.
I don't know, Amazon's got a giant fleet of them, that they like to run up and down my residential street 20 times a day.
I mean, the legislature has floated a proposal about adding an additional registration fee for electric vehicles, but I don't think it's enough money to make up the deficit we're talking about.
What's attributable to that, I guess it looks like it's about a 60-70% decrease in this federal funding. Is that all because of the current administration? Is it, what's?
The source of that number is the advice that the Florida DOT provides to your MPO relative to the magnitude of state and federal funding Pasco County can expect over the horizon of that plan. When we did the last study, they had said you can expect more money. Matter of fact, they went and they built State Road 52. You know, they've built some significant roads, US 41 and so forth. But this time around, that guidance was, you're not going to be getting as much, we don't think you're going to be getting as much money over the next 25 years from the state and feds, where we're going to spend the state and federal money elsewhere. So didn't really dig into that. The state statute says you got to follow your adopted plan. That was the adopted plan, so we
There's a general rule, they rely on gas tax, and gas tax, because cars are more fuel efficient, it's kind of a declining revenue source. I mean, even for the state and federal government.
Unless you drive by the gas today.
No, because the tax is still the same. The
Yeah,
price
the
of-
tax doesn't go up.
It all goes into
Yeah.
Chevron's pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, federal gas tax is 18.3 cents per gallon, has been since 1980s. The state gas tax is the one portion of it, there's 7 cents per gallon that are indexed to inflation. The rest of it, the other 18 cents of state gas tax is also flat.
And only a fraction goes to capital.
Yeah. Yeah, the other component of revenue at the state level is the dock stamps, which is like a state, it's similar to a state impact fee. It's the recording on the real estate transactions. So I know you've already had a long day. I'm happy to let you discuss as long as you like, but we do have one other item on the mobility fees to cover.
Yeah, I don't know, Mr. Moody, if you wanted a response to
Well,
the.
technically, he needs to ask for public comment. I'm not
Okay.
sure there is any, but.
On the time value of my
Yeah, hear
equation.
them together, or?
But it's,
Yeah.
I'm not sure you need. you
I
want
said
a
what I
answer to that.
wanted to say. My point is, we know we have a system that is not producing the
Road
roads
system,
in
yeah.
time that we need them. The public is angry. I'm not against funding roads. Public wants the roads. What I'm looking for is, we recognize the unfairness of concurrency. We tried this experiment we call mobility fees. We're now 15+ years into it. We haven't got any better results. And what I'd like to see is us attempt to sit down with a big brain trust of people. I don't have the answers, and try to come up with something better.
Well, John, you know, I think that's probably the best idea that I've heard, honestly, because if we have a problem and we identify the problem, let's see if we can identify a way to fix the problem, not keep doing the same thing again.
We're just kicking the can.
And that's one of the biggest complaints I have about government in general, is that it's just, once they get something in place, they just keep spending the money, and it doesn't always go where it's supposed to go and fund what it's supposed to fund. We got a lot of smart people around here that can maybe come up with some ideas, and I certainly think that's a useful exercise.
To Commissioner Moody's point, a handful of things that we're already doing, we are aggressively pursuing both design-build contracts and expedited procurement processes to get projects from design to construction contract more quickly.
Right, what I'm trying to figure out is, we need to figure out how to get the dollars in your hands. If it I understand why it
Right.
takes so long to design and construct a road.
So I have three. Let me give you the other two, because I think I will touch your point.
But the cost, while you do that, while this is going on, the cost of that road is going
Mhm.
up. Okay?
Go ahead, Nick. What?
We gotta be able to get the funds to you quicker. You know, to the day you break ground on the MPUD, it's probably another year before you're collecting revenue on the first house. And you haven't collected all the revenue out of that MPUD if they got a 3 or 4 or 5 year build out time in the MPUD. There's gotta be a way to get the funds into the system faster to try to, I'm not sure we can ever outrun the inflationary aspect of building a road, but at least try to catch up to it, slow it
Sure.
down a little bit.
Let Nick finish, because he's got some things he's working on.
Yeah, so two other items we're doing. One is we're aggressively working with developers. So if they're going out there, and I think Old Pasco is a good example, we've got a project just north of Overpass Road on Old Pasco Road that's going to be building turn lanes on the existing 2-lane section. And we said, that's a throwaway to improvement. Why are we wasting money on that? Let's just put your money toward the 4-lane widening cost. We'll backfill the difference and we'll get that project constructed at the time that your development is coming online, instead of waiting and building it in arrears. We have the resources to do that in that case, and that's why we were able to offer that. But that's another way we can get projects to construction a little more quickly, is by using our private sector partners. The third one is the conversations that we're having within villages of Pasadena Hills, where we recognize that we don't have cash, but we need roads. We will eventually, pursuant to our financial plan, have the resources to afford all of the roads in that area. But in order to put the money in our hands now and put the product on the road, on the street, when it's necessary, we're gonna pursue a bond. We're gonna see if we can't put some of that future revenue in our hands right now, so that we can construct the improvements as the needs are coming online and not afterward. Those are our best three initiatives, and we're using all three of those in various degrees.
If there's anything wrong with any of those things, they're great. Keep doing it. What I'm referring to is this whole system of collecting the fees. That's all.
Well, I think part of that is what you were talking about, is pursuing bonds, where you get the money up front.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
But part of number 2 that Nick mentioned, though, is that the developers that build the roads for credits, they're building the roads before they would ever expend the fee, before they'd ever pay us the fees. So they are effectively getting the road on the ground before they would ever pay us the fees at CO. So they are building the infrastructure in advance, and they're basically waiting on, they're
Get
not really
reimbursed.
realizing the credits until much later.
Mhm.
So it is a way of getting the infrastructure done sooner, but to Nick's point he made earlier, they're reluctant to do it if they can't absorb all of their credits, which is why the fees need to be higher, because they don't want to do it if they can't absorb all their credits. I mean, I realize you aren't on the room, you all aren't in the room with Nick and I when we're negotiating these $40 million deals on these roads, but they don't want to build a road if they can't absorb $20 million of their credits.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think you were asked if you were going to open public comment.
If I'm what?
You were going to open public comment.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Do we have any public comment? Sir, are you back there in the back in the black shirt? I guess not. I guess no public comment.
Want to read the next item?
You are the next item.
I know, but do you want to read it? Okay.
We'll do the official.
Yeah, you're
We have
not
to
getting out
close
of
the workshop.
You're not done yet.
I know. Item P8, you will also be sitting as a local planning agency. It's PDE 260524, an ordinance by the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners, amending the Pasco County Land Development Code Section 1302.2, mobility fees, to increase the mobility fees for various uses beyond the phase-in limitations in Section 163.31801, Section 6, Florida statutes, and other amendments as necessary. For internal consistency, providing for applicability, repealer, and providing for severability, inclusion in the Land Development Code, and an effective date.
Okay.
All right, Nick Uren, County Engineer. This presentation is even shorter. I'm going to do, I think, 6 slides, including the title. So, brief overview on mobility fees. We've already talked quite a bit about this. They pay for new transportation facilities. We add to them gas taxes, sales tax, and TIF. They can only be updated every 4 years. The increases that we are proposing as part of this update do require a unanimous vote by the County Commission. A couple of numbers that we didn't give you in the last presentation. We're looking at a $6.9 billion need. That's the cost of infrastructure that is anticipated to be necessary over the next 25 years to support that growth to 1 million people. About 950 new lane miles, which corresponds to 38 miles per year is what we're supposed to be constructing. And our 38 lane miles per year. And our projected revenues are short of the need. If we do nothing to our mobility fee rates, they're short of the need by almost $3 billion. And then I also mentioned earlier, the BCC did hear a workshop on these proposed fee rates in November, and they endorsed and gave us direction to move forward with the rates that are being shown to you this afternoon.
Quick question, to go back to that slide.
Yeah.
The shortfall of 2.9 billion, you said that's out to 2030,
2050.
2050?
Yeah, that's a 25-year forecast.
Okay. And is that 2.9 billion in 2026 dollars or 2050 dollars?
So what happens is we discount the future revenues to become current dollars.
Present
and then
value.
we use present value for the revenues, and then we establish costs based on present value costs.
So it's 2.9 billion in present dollars.
Yeah.
Shortfall.
That's right.
So 25 years, it's $10 billion
That was
shortfall.
the
Yeah.
Yeah.
reason for the question, yes. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I understand.
This is the fee rate table that we're proposing. Now, these are, if you're familiar with our mobility fee rate system, we also have urban area and rural area tables, and we have various forms of development. We have standard, mixed-use, trip-reducing, traditional neighborhood development, and transit-oriented development. So 4 different types of development, 3 different areas. What I'm showing you in this summary table is a suburban standard development. Most common, we get most of our fees in that category, and that's why I'm highlighting this content, but the actual fee tables for each of those scenarios are in the attachment. This gives you an idea of the proposed increases, and again, we're proposing to increase the fees over 2 equal installments, starting with an effective date of July 1 of 2026, and then a second increase in July 1 of 2027. And then keep in mind, by state law, when this fee increase is adopted, presuming that it goes forward, we will be restricted from performing another update for 4 years. So the fees that are going to be in place on July 1 of 27 will remain in place for that 2-year period, through almost 3-year period, until we can consider another fee schedule and update per state law.
So some of those fees are actually decreasing, correct?
So that's correct. We have so we're also, one of the objectives of this LDC amendment is to streamline and simplify as much of the code as we can in this particular paragraph. If you ever looked at this section of the Land Development Code, it's 40 pages of text and then 100 pages of tables. The proposed amendments will reduce that to 10 pages of text and 4 pages of tables. It's remarkably more concise. The details still live in the mobility fee study report. So if you want any of that additional information, you can seek it out as far as the content that was in the original tables. All of the regulations that are in the Land Development Code are being maintained in the amended language. We're just writing it a lot cleaner and simpler in this proposed update.
So-
I say that because one of the items are the restaurants. We're consolidating from the question of subjectively determining, are you a high-quality sit-down restaurant? Are you a high-turnover sit-down restaurant? Or are you a quality restaurant? Do you have paper napkins? Do you have cloth napkins? Do you have black napkins? Like all that stuff we're setting aside and saying, look, if you're building a drive-through, you're gonna have more traffic. You pay a higher rate. If you don't have a drive-through, you pay a lower rate. Easy. Easy to discern on a building permit. It's not subjective. We move it. It allows everybody to move forward a little more quickly.
And then I noticed another one that was for owner-builder, existing owner-builder.
That was at the request of board members at the workshop. They said, hey, how are our long-term Pasco residents who want to blossom into home ownership going to be protected from these large fee increases? And I'll let you guess as to which commissioners were pursuing that, but there was a desire to introduce a discount structure so that those long-term Pasco residents who are pursuing a new home as an owner-builder would pay reduced fees. And so
I was
this.
very happy to see that.
They also discounted the rate for locally owned small
That's right.
businesses as
The
well.
LDC amendment allows for those folks to pay the lowest fee, the TOD rate. And the same thing with the locally owned small businesses. They're currently paying the traditional neighborhood development rate, which is 50% of the suburban total. Now they're going to pay the TOD rate, which is 75% discount from the suburban standard rate. So both of those two entities, we're taking care of our own while still acknowledging that there are a lot of people who are coming from outside of Pasco who want to live here and make this their home. And we want to ensure that we have enough resources to build as much of the road network to accommodate them as we can. Some of that content is here. We are retaining the 100% discount for hotels, offices, and industrial uses at board request. We're retaining the discount for single-family and accessory dwelling units on 5+ acre lots. Those are existing. We are increasing, as I just mentioned, the discount for locally owned small businesses. We've added this new discount for long-term Pasco residents who are constructing.
Pasco resident.
Someone who has resided in Pasco County for at least 10 years.
And they're an owner builder.
And what?
And they're pursuing an owner-builder permit. So that eliminates the potential of a national home builder saying, well, I'm selling to a person who has lived here for a very long time. It's a unique scenario where we're saying, as an owner builder, if you have lived here for 10 years.
Building permit.
Yeah, I know what an owner.
Yeah.
But that would prevent a long-term resident that wants to raise and rebuild their house from hiring a contractor. So if they hired a contractor, a GC to do it, then they wouldn't be able to get that discount. So,
I'm guessing we could probably see our way to
okay.
making them
The owner builder
eligible.
program requires you to say that you're acting as your own
Correct. And
contractor, and you have to sign an affidavit that you'll live in the house for a year.
Correct.
Yeah, and you also have to sign an affidavit that you'll personally supervise all the work.
Correct. So if you have someone that, let's say they
Is
live in a.
capable of doing that.
Right, that lives in an old house and they came in with some money, they want to rebuild knock that whole house down and start over. If they hired a contractor, then they would have to pay the higher mobility fees.
That's accurate, but that's the only program that exists that we can ensure they would actually live in the home.
Right.
Any other one, they could flip it, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have to live.
To your concern, they could sign the affidavit and then they could delegate to the contractor separately without putting their name on the permits to get the oversight and the professional guidance, but still get the lower rates. There are ways that they could navigate the system.
Okay.
The key with the owner builder program is they at least are representing that they're gonna live in the home for a year.
Right.
Yeah, along with that they're representing, they're gonna personally oversee the project
Yes.
and have liability for it, so. I just was questioning whether or not that met the intent of the new language.
Go ahead, Nick.
The last three items on here, we are proposing minor amendments to the map borders for the benefit area districts. I'll show you that on a subsequent slide that controls where the money can be spent. We are simplifying the mobility fee surcharges within the connected city and the VOPH special districts. And then again, we're overall simplifying the language in the land development code to streamline and make it easier to consume. As far as the benefit district map goes, we're clearly adding the two special districts to the map. They're already recognized informally in the land development code. We're making it very easy to discern where those boundaries lie for connected city and villages of Pasadena Hills. And then we're also proposing to change the lines between districts 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. The simple point is, we would like to draw the lines along county roadways. And that allows for us to recognize the shared travel nature of the adjacent districts, and it allows for us to invest the fees generated in those two districts in those major roadways that both districts depend on. And today, our zones don't do that. So that's the
county
structure.
roads that are on the lines are, you can use just fee money from either district?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you look at the boundary, I'll just use 1 and 2 for an example. When you look at the boundary, it follows Shady Hills Boulevard, it follows Sun Lake Boulevard, and it follows Rangeland Boulevard. Those are 3 projects that we have an intense need to build, and it would be great if we could pool resources from both of the 2 districts in order to afford them. Same answer, 2 and 3, we follow Bellamy and Old Pasco and Wesley Chapel Boulevard. Same purpose. And then we kind of jump over and we follow Livingston to the south.
Okay.
Very good.
Again, recommendation on this one is accept public comment, and then we're asking you to find the proposed amendments consistent with the comprehensive plan.
All right, do we have any public comment? I see no one. Thank you, Nick. Any further comments from up here?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's kind of, I understand the position they're in, but it is kind of kicking the can instead of trying to address the root problem. But-
Yeah, I mean, I still like the idea of, forming some kind of a group to, basically a brain trust, see if they can come up with more ideas. I mean, you have some good ideas, about, with bonds and so forth.
Geo bonds, yeah.
But there's,
right.
there's maybe other ideas. And I think it's worth forming, a group of, people that work in those areas and, can really add something to the conversation. Never hurts.
My biggest concern is when I look at the length of time over which the pre-construction planning horizon is for a project. This is gonna take a lot of projects and make them no longer feasible. And I'm not sure that we're in the right time and place in the economy where we can just afford to let these projects fall by the wayside. The biggest employer in this county is the government. The next biggest employer in this county is the construction industry, okay? And if these projects fall by the wayside because now all of a sudden they don't make sense because we jacked up the fees, unemployment creates us a lot bigger problems. And I don't want to see that happen. And we're already in a housing market slump. Some are saying we're in a housing market recession. I guess that depends on where you look at it. Houses are staying, in 2021 and 2022, people lined up outside of houses to offer more than the asking price and buy it the first day it went on the market. Now it takes 120, 150. The house next door to me took over 18 months to sell and required a $100,000 price reduction. That's going on all over the place. There's a time and a place to raise the fees, and that was probably back at the end of 2021. I'm just not sure this is the right time and the right place. And this is difficult for me, because believe me, I understand the need for the roads, and I understand the problem of the lag time that it takes to design the roads. But I also look at fees on a schedule are pie in the sky. They're not money in the bank. And if you kill projects in the process, then that's even less money you have to work with. So that's my concern with all of this.
Well, the catch-22 is if you keep proceeding on the track that you're on, you add the traffic to the road
I-
and you make the deficit bigger between what it takes to build the road and the roads
I'd
that are.
say it was an
so
easy problem to
it's a-
solve. Right?
I
You
mean,
kill the project, you also kill the traffic.
Yeah.
So.
That's true. If the project's dead, I don't
Building
get
use.
the traffic that
Right.
went along with it.
correct.
Is there any language in this that grandfathers any applications already in process?
Well, building permit, yes. Build,
But
so
not-
complete building permit applications submitted before the effective date are always grandfathered.
Right, but not projects that are in zoning or comp plan?
Not zoning, site plan, no.
Right.
It's-
Site plan.
These are people that are making big investments.
And those are the ones you don't want to have fall out.
Right, so-
Those are the ones, right. Those are.
Because some of those people have committed hundreds of thousands of dollars to that process at this point, and, you know, they're not in building permit yet, but they've very well invested, you know, to the tune of hundreds of thousands, if not even millions, on a project that, you know, now is going to be tremendously more expensive. So is that something that was considered to add that language? I mean, that would be my recommendation, is to add that language for projects that are in process.
The problem with that is that we have so many zonings out there that
It would exclude too many.
it would effectively kill the revenue source. I mean,
But you don't have a revenue source if the project doesn't get done.
I understand that, but I don't know where to,
Where to draw the line?
I don't know where to draw that line, and I'm also trying to think about all the developers that, like, the developer we're dealing with in Pasadena Hills that needs these fees increased so he can absorb his credits. So if I exempt all the projects that need to pay him so he can absorb his credits, he's not gonna be able to absorb them.
I mean, how much could an investor have invested before they ever get to site plan? Just if you have to do a comp plan amendment and a zoning change.
My next door neighbor charges over $500 an hour.
I mean, a major project, it could be a tremendous amount of money spent just before you ever get to site plan.
You know, I mean, I just think in terms of fairness, if I put myself in that position, I would think, you know, if you're a developer and once you get zoning and land use approval, I mean, the permitting process should be just part of the process. I think you should be grandfathered after that, after you get your plan approved, basically your zoning plan approved, preliminary plan.
I'm just gonna be honest with you,
Yeah.
Chairman, if you vest everybody who's zoned, you might as well just throw this ordinance out.
Yeah.
You're not gonna collect any revenue.
Yeah, but I think John does
I mean,
make a
'cause
point.
I don't think you realize how many properties we have
No,
that we have zoned.
I understand your point. I get that. I get that. But
We have so many old zonings in this county that have been, I don't think you realize how many zonings that come across my desk that have been zoned that way since 1970.
Yeah, I'm not talking about those properties. I'm not talking about speculative zoning. Talking about.
We have lots of zonings that have been on the books for a long time.
You could put a time frame on it.
I think the issue for me is this. It's that you're trying to jam the increase in this short period of time, which is in this window of when a project happens. And I think that's why the legislature gave you this, those guys recognize this. They recognize how long it takes in advance to plan and then start implementing, executing a project. That's why they created the 4 years. We're trying to do it in 2 and declare
Well, they also said that if you,
extraordinary circumstances, and I mean,
but they also said if you declare extraordinary circumstances, you've got to do it in at least 2 increments.
yeah, well,
Yeah, instead of 4, but 2 years is well within that window of time.
And
it
then
takes
with
to-
all due respect, extraordinary circumstances, Bieber didn't tell me that the growth was gonna be high. You know what? In March of 2020, I started noticing all these cars parked on Grand Boulevard in front of my office that had New Jersey license plates, Ohio license plates, and Michigan license plates, and New York license plates, Oregon. How many people come here from Oregon? By August, all those license plates from all those other states were still here. They're usually gone. It's too damn hot for them here, right? By 2021, people were lining up out in front of houses put on the market that afternoon. No, you guys in planning, development, and economic growth were overwhelmed with an avalanche of MPUD applications for all, and then we act like, well, Bieber didn't tell us the people were moving here. You knew they were moving here. You had to process all their applications. Mike Fasano didn't know when they needed to get their driver's licenses changed from New York to Florida? I mean, come on, this wasn't a big surprise. The governor was welcoming them with open arms. We were the COVID capital. Come here, escape your oppressive government up north and come to the free state of Florida. Yeah, we welcomed him with open arms. Maybe we shouldn't have, I don't know, but that's what we did. So we can't act like growth is a surprise. I just don't know how we declare that to be an extraordinary, it was something we couldn't foresee.
Well, and you're only truncating the table by 2 years, right? So why couldn't that 2-year window be filled by a bond? Right? And then those properties would still come online because it's
Well, potentially.
fees they would expect, or they were expecting, and the revenue would be there to pay the bond.
You can't bond impact fees if that's your question.
Well, but they're exploring
Because
bonds
That's because-
to build
well-
the
roads.
reason you can't bond the impact fees is there's no guarantee you're gonna get them.
Correct.
In that case, we're bonding tax increment revenue, because Pasadena Hills has its own tax increment district, which we're bonding that revenue.
So it's just in the case of Pasadena Hills, so bonds couldn't potentially be used elsewhere in the county to build roads, is what you're saying.
We have a countywide tax increment district, which in theory could be used to bond as well, but it's not as robust of a revenue source as it is in VOPH. I'm not saying it can't be done, I want to be clear, it can be done, it's just not.
Well, and could that revenue source be, instead of increasing mobility fees, then you seek to increase that revenue source instead?
That's what we just talked about. That's the revenue source that is under attack by the legislature. That's effectively property taxes. So, no, I mean, it's likely to be cut, not increased.
I'm not sure the legislature was the one attacking it. Governor's attacking it.
Okay, well, somebody in Tallahassee is attacking that revenue source. I don't know.
Tomato.
I think that's the governor.
I don't think we're inclined to increase that revenue source, given the current sentiment in Tallahassee.
I hear you.
We'll be lucky if we keep it as is. Let me put it that way.
I mean, nobody likes a fee increase of any kind. I mean, everybody wants to always, no matter what it is, increase taxes, increase mobility fees. I mean, but the fact of the matter is there's a shortfall, a significant shortfall. Either, if you're gonna have the growth and you want the growth, you need the roads. If you don't need the roads, you can't have the growth. So I mean, unfortunately, I don't see a way around this.
Yeah, my fear of it, Jamie, it just, I'm not saying for the long term, it's
Mhm.
only in the short term.
Sure.
Is that we're kidding ourselves, we're gonna have projects die on the vine. That's fees we're not going to collect. If we were in the mania,
Sure.
the building mania that we were in 2021 through 2020, early 2024, I would say, well, if a couple fell off the vine, so what? But we're not in that mania anymore. we're in a different situation. We may still have some rezonings, but if you go look at the number of rezonings we approved here. We used to have to come in here and approve 10 and 20 of them at a time every other 2 weeks, okay? Now it's, right, and we were doing them in huge numbers. Today was nothing, 96 condo units in an existing development, infill. I mean, I just don't think it's the right time economically for that. There may be, and maybe things will get turn around, and there'll be a time. That's just my thoughts. And this is one of those areas where you may not have unanimity. Your job, Nick, will be to get unanimity when you get to the board, because that's part of the statute. I'm just not sure you're gonna get it here.
It's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, you know?
Yeah.
Hey Nick, taking a project, just for curiosity, design, build, or CMAR or something like that, I mean, what does that typically cut out of the life cycle of a project? And is there opportunities for contractor financing on those projects?
It could be as little as 9 months, maybe as much as 2 years.
So quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to work through David's colleagues to make sure we're documenting compliance with state procurement regulations on our design build contract or solicitations.
Sure.
So, you know, government is designed to be accountable.
Understood.
Yeah, the other thought too, though, is that the developers are usually building on virgin land that they own. So, yeah, so it's a faster, easier process. When the government goes in to widen a road, it's usually an existing road with utilities, power poles, property damages. It's just a different animal.
Yep.
So.
So, we go from here, David. Comments?
Again, your duty here is to decide whether it's consistent with the comp plan. Which the agenda memo outlines the reasons it's consistent with the comp plan.
Well, like I said before, I mean, nobody's ever in favor of a fee increase, but I don't see really we have a choice here, so I want to move approval, that this is consistent with the comp plan.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? No further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign?
Nay.
We have one nay. So, motion carries.
Is that the end of our agenda?
Yes, sir, that's the remainder of the agenda.
Yeah.
The other one was a companion.
Yeah, the workshop item was a non-action item.
Okay. Thank you, Nick, and companion, all the people
Yeah.
over there that did.
Now that we're done splitting babies,
Yeah.
Yeah,
no good answers.
you ain't getting the vote, now you ain't paying fees.
Now we just hope we don't have any cancellations, right?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Nick has to get 5 votes.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And a second. Derek, you were quick with that one.
Yes.
This one, there'll be unanimity.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yes, thank you.
Track. Say, did you eat your wheat? You did ask us that.
However, Chaplain, you had 3 votes, votes in the front yard.